Good 6 a.m. to you. Good morning. 6 a.m. on February 8th, Thursday, February 8th. I was just laughing, Bill, because at least we have each other. We just got our pictures back from the photo shoot for the new Jef and Bill show. Jeff Hunt's here, Bill Thorpe, and they're wonderful. We got into some 80s poses, some 80s like Macy's glamour shot poses. So
they were fantastic. It was appropriately hilarious. It was great. And I love the fact the photographer's like, you guys in for something weird? And I'm kind of looking at him like, I don't think you know us well enough.
When a photographer asks you if you're in for something weird, what run?
Yeah, exactly. That was really good. How you doing today?
We are up and at 'em, man. Big news, Colorado. The case before the U.S. Supreme Court as to whether or not Trump should be on the Colorado ballot is being argued today.
Yeah, that's huge. That's enormous. And there's so many interesting ideas and constitutional principles contained therein. Yeah. But I think you and I will probably agree on the direction this thing is going to go. I think there's only really one direction. But I'm really curious in this conversation to see what the proponents are arguing, what their premises are. And I'm super curious about not just the opinion that is probably going to, firm ruling, but the dissent, whatever their ruling is. I'm honestly more curious about the dissent, regardless of what it is, because whatever the court decides, I'm super curious about, okay, why didn't they take the other argument? I'm just really curious because I think, I don't know.
It's like a boxing match. We're going to cover it all today because the Denver Post is like, this is easy. Keep Trump off the ballot. Wall Street Journal. This is easy.
Yeah.
Put Trump on the ballot.
So, two totally different interpretations.
Yep. We'll be covering all of that. Plus, it's Super Bowl weekend. So stick with us through the entire show. There's a ton to talk about, but let's get to the news with Mr. Blake Olson.
All right, guys. Thank you very much. Love the photos. I saw them. Very impressive. Maybe a good word. You're correct.
I think awkward is the best description.
34. Awkward. Yeah, that's right. 34 and cloudy in Denver, expecting a high in the low 50s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story is, as the guys were talking about the Supreme Court, we'll hear arguments today on the Colorado Supreme Court's ruling disqualifying Trump from appearing on the state's ballot. A decision is expected before the Super Tuesday primaries next month. After Senate Republicans blocked a border security and foreign aid package on Wednesday, Senate Democrats today will try to pass an aid package for Israel and Ukraine. The U.S. military helicopter that crashed into the mountains of San Diego has a history of emergency landings and deadly crashes. Between 1969 and 1990, more than 200 servicemen were killed in accidents involving the CH-53AD and E helicopters. 5 are still missing in a crash. They found the helicopter after it did crash in the just outside San Diego.
Oh, that's awful. Now Blake,
Tuesday night. Yeah,
have you heard about those helicopters? I mean, in most helicopters, the physics, the way a helicopter works, it's literally trying to tear itself apart. Maintenance is super important in helicopters.
Correct.
And there is one bolt in the helicopter that is referred to as the Jesus bolt. And the reason being, if it fails, you're going to meet Jesus. Because it connects the entire copter to the propellers. And failure is kind of built into it. And I remember just talking to traffic copter people here, Tony LaMonica and such, and I think people going around. And he said, the one thing you never do is step into that helicopter if the maintenance hasn't been done regularly. He goes, that's just asking to die. He said, because it's not like planes. Planes, things can go wrong. You still can. Things go wrong in helicopters. You fall like a rock. Nothing you can do.
No question.
Yeah. And back to the happy stories.
CBS affiliate in Dallas. There's no doubt. And I've got helicopter stories. But I used to hear the same thing from the Vietnam veteran who flew our copter in Dallas at the CBS affiliate down there, and frightening. I still don't like getting into helicopters.
How many times have you ridden?
A 17-year-old student, 2, 3, and that's enough for me.
We'll talk about that later.
That's enough. I mean, and I do have a golf and helicopter story that I will tell you sometime. I think I told Stefan about it couple years ago, but I'll tell you guys about that one. That was an interesting one, to say the least. A 17-year-old student at Denver's George Washington High School is accused of attacking a staff member on Tuesday. Officials say it began when the school's dean of culture tried to intervene in a fight between the two students. One of the students then reportedly attacked the dean, leaving her injured. The student was taken into custody by school resource officers after a brief struggle, and he's being investigated for second-degree assault. The dean was treated at the scene, and she returned back to work on Wednesday. Denver Public Schools responded to a photo of the incident posted to social media, saying the behavior has no place in the Denver Public Schools. Tucker Carlson's interview with Vladimir Putin can be seen tonight on X, and the long-awaited Kobe Bryant statue will be on of Crypto.com Arena this afternoon.
The Lakers picked today because of the numerical significance of the date 2/8/24. Bryant wore the numbers 8 and 24 during his career with the Lakers, and his daughter Gianna wore the number 2 during her time playing basketball. Kobe Bryant, Gianna Bryant, and 7 other people were killed in a helicopter crash in Calabasas in January of 2020. The ceremony will start at 3 p.m. Then the Lakers will wear their special Mamba jerseys in honor of Kobe when they host the Denver Nuggets at 7 p.m. I'm Daniel Martindale.
So the Nuggets go for 3 straight tonight, 8 o'clock in LA against the Lakers this evening. Avs at Carolina tonight at 5 o'clock, looking to get back on the winning track. And check this one out, guys. Travis Kelce's mom says it may be too pricey for her to go to Super Bowl 58 this Sunday. Sounds like Travis, or who's that, Taylor Swift, need to give up some cash for her.
Yeah, I bet Travis's girlfriend will come through. Just saying. She's got some coin.
I would hope so.
Yeah.
Hey, it's 31 in Littleton. Yep. And 32 in Brighton. Did you need to say something, Billy?
No, not at all. No, that's okay.
34 in Denver, and we'll talk to you guys soon. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Speaking of Taylor Swift, Domino's Pizza introduces Taylor Swift-inspired Super Bowl deal.
That is so smart.
Family-sized feast for $19.89. Domino's Pizza is offering a massive deal for football fans to enjoy ahead of Super Bowl, calling it a, quote, perfect combo.
Oh, that's sweet. Now, what is in the perfect combo?
The deal includes 2 medium one-topping pizzas, a 2-liter bottle of Coke, 8 cinnamon bread twists. You have to tell me if this relates to her songs, because I don't know her songs. And 16 Parmesan bread bites for a sum that's under $20.
Huh.
The price of the deal is $19.89, a nod to the 2014 album by singer-songwriter Taylor Swift and Kansas City Chiefs tight end Travis Kelce, who began dating earlier this football season.
1989 is also the year of her birth. So that's why the previous album, not Midnights, but the previous one is named 1989. Same thing, but that's one of the areas she grew up in late in the 80s and the early 90s, and so she has this nostalgia for the 80s area. I think it's a great deal. That 1989, that is fantastic. I mean, the 2 one-topping mediums you can grab online for $7, $6.99 each, and then the 2-liter is going to cost you at Domino's $2 and some change normally, and then those bread bites and the cinnamon sticks are going to be about $4.50, $5, depending on what deals you have when you're ordering online. So as a whole, yeah, you're saving some cash. That's not huge, but
is there a connection? Has she done songs on
not that I'm
twists?
aware of. No, not that I can think of. I'm kind of going through it thinking I don't think so. I applaud them going ahead and making the connection, because if you are sitting down, again, the Super Bowl is a lot of casual viewers. Now, if you're sitting down with a family and you've got to make that choice, oh, we're going to have pizza. Pizza's an easy thing. And it is your daughters that are with you. What are you ordering? You're ordering the potato sauce
There you go.
special. Of course you're going to. That's the one you're going to pick. It is so smart. It is very, very, very smart marketing. So whether or not, see if it moves a needle for them. And again, for the value, that's a good deal.
So we're wings eaters on Super Bowl Sunday.
Okay.
So we already got our order in to pick up. Now you got to get that in now, like today.
Do you
probably
have a favorite
too late.
spot? I mean, I just a shout out, not an advertiser, but just shout out. I want to know where does Jeff go?
Wingstop just
Wingstop's
down
good.
off of Parker Road here.
Yeah, so. Wingstop's good. Now, if you get a chance, this is I'll let you know. There is a location, a place called Wing Hut at Hamden and Chambers, right here.
Okay.
Stop, skip, and a jump from the station.
Yeah.
Knockout place.
Wing Hut.
Knockout. Wing Hut. Yeah. Knockout place. And tremendous choices as well. They do a really, really good job. It's one of those things that if you drive a little bit further and you're in the area, they do a wonderful job.
So you got to get the pre-orders in because we just go and pick up because the pre-order is already done, but that line will be around the block hours before the Super Bowl. So hopefully
now,
a little tip.
What are your go-to wings? What do you
We
choose?
just get the original hot, man.
Just
boneless.
Original? Just one. You don't do several. You just one thing. Everybody gets just one type
Everybody's
of wing.
happy with original hot, brother.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow.
We tried the other stuff. You get the Hawaiian. You get the
So wait.
spicy barbecue.
Okay. Now, parenting thing here. So you're telling me like if you guys say, hey, where does everybody want to eat? Y'all are choosing the same restaurants? Is that happening?
They're all pretty content with like Red Robin, but they're all within a 4-year age gap of each other.
Damn.
So it's not like we got a lot of diversity and alternatives in there.
I cannot tell you how jealous I am. I got the number of times and wasted minutes in my life trying to figure out what is going to be okay.
See this? Did you see this brilliant video? It was on Instagram the other day where the guy cracked the code on how to figure out where your wife wants to go eat.
Oh, no.
You see this? So he goes, his wife gets in the car.
Yeah.
He's filming it.
Yeah.
Secretly, she doesn't go. And he just asked this question.
Yeah.
You'll never guess where we're going to eat today.
Oh, and then wherever she
then she says, and then he goes,
that's where it is.
How'd you know? We're going there.
That's very smart. That is really, really smart. Because it's my wife and I'll talk, and she'll ask, she's like, hey, do you want to go out and grab something tonight, either for dinner, for lunch, and oftentimes the weekends? And I'll look and go, yeah, that'd be a great idea. She goes, I'll go ask the kids. And I stop her. I'm like, no. What are you doing? You know how this works.
You're going to make it way more complicated.
Yes. Everybody will choose a different restaurant. And if they choose the same restaurant, everybody will have a super complicated order. That's not how it works. We tell them where we're going, and then we deal with it. I'm like, don't you know how this works? I'm so jealous that you can order just one thing of wings. You can pick one restaurant. We have to. There are meetings. There are pie charts. There are flow charts about how many wings people and what tastes and who's going to do this. And I am so jealous.
It's pretty easy. Good text message here. Very accurate. $19.89 is only a good deal if you pick it up. With the ridiculous service fees and delivery these days, you're going to end up spending about $40 on that.
Fantastic text here. I really appreciate that and thank you for throwing that in, because I got to tell you, I don't have pizza or any food delivered at all, ever, because of that. I look at the price and go, okay, wait, my $20 order is now $47.50 just because you're delivering it to me. And I love the fact that they charge me a delivery fee, then ask me for a tip. The gall of you saying you're already charging me more because you're delivering it to me, and then you're asking me for more money.
Yep.
Who raised you? I mean, just really. So I can't do it.
It's like when you go to a convenience store and they ask for a tip. When you walked around, bought the whole thing, bought it, and they're like, they turn it to you and they always just say, there's going to be a question that pops up. They won't ask you directly for the tip.
Yeah.
You're going to see a question here.
Yeah.
And directly in front of them, you have to say no tip.
Yes. And I like the fact that they always say it's a question. As if it's going to say one day, do you like my haircut? Nice shirt. I mean, what's the new flavor we choose? No, it's always about give me money. And I'm sorry. I am okay. And I worked food service.
Yeah,
I am happy to tip well with good service. And I'm even moderate service. I will show you. Hey, you suck? You're going to get stiffed, right? And I'm going to talk to you about it. I'm going to say, listen, this is not what you do. But if I walk into the store and you're standing behind the counter and you take my order, which is the normal transaction of what we do, and then you ask for a tip, get bent. I just, no. Why have we decided that doing the regular job is just worth a tip? I forgot where I was the other day. It was a smaller store. And it was the most inane little thing where it was the idea is the person, all they did is stand behind the counter while I had my stuff and I run my own card and I'm supposed to tip them. For what?
You're going to
standing
see a
there.
question. Please answer
Yes,
this question
exactly.
in front of us.
Yeah.
Now, here's a big debate that we
Ooh,
may end up in.
Yeah, please. Yeah.
Boneless wings or just chicken nuggets, one texter said. So
that's tough.
that's
a tough one. Yeah, what's your
I
choice?
can eat both.
Yeah.
I absolutely can eat both. My kids not fans of bone-in at all, and they're kids, right? So
Really?
maybe we just go boneless for them. But
That's interesting.
I don't know. This is probably the biggest weekend of the year for wings.
Now, why do you think the kids don't like the bone-in? Why do they? What does it mean? Anything? No,
just chewing around a bone.
Yeah, it is a weird thing because it's the idea of how much meat in one versus the other, and I can see the idea of not having to get around the bone. For me personally, this is going to sound weird. I prefer the taste of the bone-in.
I do too,
and I think part of it is
100%.
because of the bone. Part of it is because of the ligaments and the marrow and everything else that's in there that just leaks into based on the cooking process. I think that's part of it. However, I will do boneless on one condition: they're cheaper.
Are they?
If they are. If I'm on the menu and you're gonna cut off
on the
buck or
Dave
so,
Ramsey package,
you have no idea. There's an entire OCD thing in my head that we can go through. That my kids and family and stuff. I'm not cheap, but I am very cautious and careful. I spend a lot of time looking at prices. Grocery stores are like a game to me. That is a giant
You're
game
one of those
show.
couponers, huh?
Oh God, yeah.
And guys that come out with like 3 carts full of stuff, and the supermarket actually pays them for it.
Last week we spent roughly $220 on groceries and saved $85. So that's not a problem. I can do that. That's easy to do. Easy. That's a layup. And so those are the things. It's a game for me. So I look at it, and if you're going to charge me less for the boneless wings, okay, fine. I'll buy the boneless wings. I'm not that into it. But equal price, bone in every time. So for me, that's just a price issue. That's why, again, I get my lazy, large, fat butt in the car, and I go to the store and I pick up the wings. That's why I go there, because it saves me some time. So, yeah.
Please answer this question.
Yeah. Can I answer it loudly? No, you do not get a tip. Yes, this is gum. I'm not tipping you on gum. Kmart person. That's just, sorry.
So it is Super Bowl weekend.
Yeah.
Great article in Entertainment Weekly about the top 50 actually Super Bowl commercials of all time. We're only going to get into the top 10. We'll do the 10 through 6 today, and we'll do 5 through 1. But I grew up in an advertising family. My dad was a big advertiser with Furniture Row Marketing, Big Sur water beds. You remember the wine glass on the water beds, and the guys would jump on top of it and stuff like that. So
I'm just curious about how many people were drinking wine in bed. It was interesting. I'm like, that's the problem I'm having. Spilling my liquor. Okay. Interesting target market.
We always grew up analyzing commercials, and so what I love about Super Bowl weekend are these great commercials. I mean, they invest a lot of time in them, and it's a big risk for these companies.
Yeah.
So they can sometimes just totally miss, and a big financial loser. Other times they become memorable icons in our culture. And so we're going to go through 10 through 6 today. You guys remember the E-Trade, baby?
Oh, this is tragic, man. Investors just like you could lose tens of thousands of dollars on their 401k to hidden fees. Thankfully, E-Trade has low-cost investments and no hidden fees. But, if you're still bent on blowing this fat stack of cash, there's a couple ways you could do it.
Then we got the babies.
Yeah, he's in space. He's dancing. Yeah. He's on a polo pony.
The little throw ups.
Save it. Boom.
That was good.
That was a good one. That was number 10
now,
on
here's one of the
Entertainment
things.
Weeklies.
I'm going to tell you this as a teaser. One of these 5, I think is a very good narrative. I think it's a very ineffective commercial. And the fact that they put it in the top 10, for me, I think they're judging these based on entertainment, not based on efficacy. And I'll surprise you is based on which one it is. We'll talk about it when you get there.
Yeah. Next one, FedEx Castaway. I don't remember this one, but when I watched it the other day, it was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Hi.
Hi.
I was marooned on an island for 5 years with this package, and I swore that I would deliver it to you because I work for FedEx.
That's very admirable. Thank you.
Hey, but by the way, what's in the package?
Nothing really. Just a satellite phone, GPS locator, fishing rod, water purifier, and some seeds. Just silly stuff. Thank you again. You keep up the good work.
That is so good.
So this was how they choose it. They rated them
Yeah.
according to either they make us want stuff, they want to buy the product, they make us feel stuff.
Yeah.
So, kind
Makes
of an
sense.
emotional connection.
Yep.
There's a star quality connected with it. We
sure.
can't look away, or it explains the product really well.
Yeah.
So that was kind of their
That one
guidance
works
on
well. This one works really well. This is of course the Tom Hanks Castaway movie,
that.
and he's a FedEx employee, and for them to take that and poke fun at themselves and to turn it around and make it a narrative into the commercial, because the Tom Hanks Castaway, everybody knew Wilson and the volleyball, but they didn't go that direction. They went a little bit different and told the narrative different. That, to me, as far as taking advantage of a cultural moment, is brilliant. They didn't create it, but they leapfrogged onto it and created something that was sticky. That's one of them. The next one we're going to do is absolutely one of my all-time favorites.
just some silly stuff.
Yes.
Seeds.
Yeah, see, it's just silly stuff. And his face is just like, wait, what? He's like, I could have opened this. And, yeah.
And gotten off.
Yeah.
Because if you remember in Castaway, there was a box he didn't open.
Yeah.
It was the one with the painting.
Yeah, with the painting.
On it and of the wings.
Yep.
And that became his guidance to get off
Yeah,
the ship
exactly.
or the island. All right. This is an absolute all-time
That's
favorite.
amazing.
If you were anyone older than 20 years old, you probably remember this one. Terry Tate, office linebacker.
When we asked Reebok to send us Terry Tate, some people thought we were crazy. But I'm a firm believer in paradigm breaking, outside the box thinking.
Hey, buddy.
Break was over 15 minutes ago, Mitch!
And since Terry's been with us, our productivity has gone up 46%. We're getting more from our employees than ever before.
You know you need a cover sheet on your TPS reports, Richard. That ain't new, baby.
Hey, Terry.
Hey, Janice.
But what's really impressed me is how Terry's become part of the Felcher family.
You get high, baby.
He fits right in here.
That's a long distance call, Doug.
To be honest, I wish Reebok sent us 10 Terry Tates.
You want to play games, Gene? Well, when it's game time, it's pay time, baby.
They are
so good.
You know who we need to get on
my
because he lives in Colorado. He's a good friend. I just thought of this was Justin Folk, the director of What Is a Woman, did the Doritos commercial with the little kid that flies.
Yeah, that was good.
That was his son. He lives in Highlands Ranch.
Oh, that's really good.
I'll text him. We'll see. Maybe we can get him on the radio tomorrow.
God, that Terry Tate one is so good. It's so memorable, and they're little things like you don't see it you miss it in the audio, but in some of the visual, there's a part about halfway through where the guy's speaking over the shoulder. It's a conference room, and you see this employee run, throwing papers, hands in the air, going, ah! And Terry comes back and goes, you can run, but you can't hide. And I'm like, it's so good.
The genius, the brilliance of the writing where he hits the guy. You got to put your TPS reports out. Oh, hi, Janice.
Yeah. And the fact that Janice steps over him, the guy that he's just hit that's laying there. Janice is like, well, this happens every day. It was so good and so memorable. And I love the fact that what they bring back is they reinforce the brand.
Yeah.
And so Reebok's the beginning, Reebok's the end, but also Reebok is branded on Terry Tate's jersey that he's wearing that is bright red, white letters, and everybody else in suits. So it stands out. It's just everything they did about it. And they could have chosen any other color, but the red works. Because of it has to go with the gray and the black suits. Yeah, it creates such a great differentiating visual. It's
and the contrast of we work in offices.
Yeah,
we work in corporate offices.
Well,
and
some people work.
Yeah, right. And it's often quiet and professional. People are doing their work.
Yes, and
then you juxtapose that with the guy running around just laying out. Papers flying everywhere. People screaming.
Yep. Oh, it's so good.
That was good. That was iconic. Well, we're going to cover number 7 and 6, according to Entertainment Weekly, of the top Super Bowl ads of all time. And then tomorrow we'll do the top 5. But if you have one that really sticks out to you that you loved over the years that you want to tell us about, that just is a part of your memories about the Super Bowl, please give us a call, 303-696-1971. 303-696-1971 or text us on the 710 KNUS app. Joan from Lakewood, she makes her wings at home. She buys them from Costco. There's lots of dry mixes.
What did she say? Yeah. Dry mixes,
Yeah, she gets the dry mixes and she just puts them in the air fryer.
Oh, there you go, Joan, air fryer. Now, Joan, text in or give me a call. How long and at what temperature do you do it on the air fryer? Because that can be a little iffy. So I want to know your secret, because I have an air fryer at home and it's good, but you got to really work it right, because there's that edge to where they come out and they're still a little soggy versus the crispiness.
Yep.
So I want to know your
Crispy's
secret.
important.
Yeah,
Yeah,
let me know.
please
Crispy's
text
very
us
important.
in. And Joan, tomorrow is Friday. And if you want to swing by the station to let us try those wings.
Yeah, it'd be nice. We
wouldn't be opposed to it.
No, it's not at all. We wouldn't throw you out, nothing like that. No, we'd bring you in. You could have wings with us. It'd be nice.
Let us know what you're doing for Super Bowl Sunday. Are you hosting a big party? Are you celebrating, or are you just ignoring it? And you're a Denver Broncos fan. I saw a quote from Pat Bullen the other day that was essentially, don't ever cheer for anybody in our division. No Denver Broncos fan shall ever wish any divisional rival team any Super Bowl success. So I don't know, maybe we're joining Mr. B and just rejecting the Chiefs entirely on the Super Bowl. But give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. You're listening to the Jef and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
getting some good wings recipes pouring in. 8505. I also make wings at home. I marinate them overnight to start them in an oven and finish them in a real deep fryer. I use Frank's Red Hot sauce and cut it with butter.
Oh,
best
wow.
wing sauce ever.
That's smart. I get it. Okay, that is next level. The fact that you're cutting butter into the sauce,
I've
you know what you're doing.
Even heard of
Oh
that.
yeah, that's okay. Here's the thing. I worked in restaurants for a long time, not a chef, and had a couple of friends that were decent chefs and some that were not so good, but still they're friends of mine. But they talk about when you're doing sauces, some of the things that you add in order to add the layer. Butter is one of the secrets. Butter, mustard, you can do heavy cream, you can do a lot of different things to take up the taste. Like here's a hint. If you're ever cooking and you're sitting there going, oh, it needs more salt, if you come back 3 times and think it's more salt, it's not more salt, it needs acid. That's what your palate is telling you, that you need to add acid to the mix. So keep apple cider vinegar, stuff like that around there. Even a little bit of lemon juice can add the right taste depending on what you're doing with the sauce. You cut the sauce, the Frank's hot sauce, and you put butter in there. That's going to create something that is heavier. It's going to create a different flavor profile. It's going to be creamier. That's delicious. That's next level. And the fact that Texture has a deep fryer, you got my respect. You're operating on another level. I have that is something that I could not. I mean, you're talking about open. That's grease, and I would hurt myself. I would be scarred. I'd have to wear a mask like Phantom of the Opera. That would not be good, but I'm jealous.
There's like a genius level to that.
Yeah, there is.
That is very cool. All right, it's Super Bowl weekend. We're going through the top kind of Super Bowl ads of all time. We're going to go through 10 through 6 today, and then we'll get to 5 through 1. And I'm going to call Justin Folk, who's the director of What Is a Woman, who did a great Doritos ad. The one where the kid flying through, it's actually his son. He made that.
Oh, I'd love to know just the process about how you need to do it and what you do and what's the because the storyline.
Should get him on.
Yeah, because the idea is, I mean, you're coming out there and it is the commercial Super Bowl as well.
Right. Highest level.
Yeah, everybody is looking at you, and if your commercial sucks, you're on a list and they're talking about you the next day. Yeah, so that's not what you want.
All right, let's go. Number 7, cat herding.
This man right here is my great-grandfather. He's the first cat herder in our family.
Herding cats. Don't let anybody tell you it's easy.
Anybody can herd cattle. Holding together 10,000 half-wild short hairs, well, that's another thing altogether.
Being a cat herder is probably about the toughest thing I think I've ever done.
I got this one this morning right here, and if you look at his face, it's just ripped to shreds, You see the movies, you hear the stories. I'm living a dream. Not everyone can do what we do. I wouldn't do nothing else. It ain't an easy job, but when you bring a herd into town and you ain't lost a one of them, ain't a feeling like it in the world.
EDS, managing the complexities of the digital economy.
So EDS was a Hewlett-Packard company, and it's cowboys leading herd of cats into the city.
It's fantastic. The CGI done in there is it's superb because they take all the traditional, what you'd assume with the Western visuals, and they add cats.
Yep.
And a lot of cats. I mean, cats swimming across the river, cats. And when the guy's talking about his face, he's cuddling kitty. He's like, he talks about the scratches and stuff. And the fact they gave him a cat to cuddle, you're like, that's a better shot. Because you could do it straight. But you put a cat in there and that was good.
Entertainment Weekly rated this, like the best Saturday Night Live skits. This ad personifies the beauty of taking a ridiculous concept and running with it.
Yeah.
Considered by ad aficionados to be the best of the best, it takes a hard to explain concept, quote, managing the complexities of a digital economy, and visually explains it in a way even someone halfway through a 6-pack could comprehend.
That is good.
Not to mention the thing has so much pre-entertainment value. Herds of cats running across the prairie as a bunch of rough-edged cowboys chase them. It remains irresistible to this day.
Yeah, that is a good one.
All right, number 6, and this will be our last one for today. I played this for the kids yesterday. So my kids are, 14 to 10.
Yeah, they've missed this.
They missed this one, and they died. So
they?
now in our house is this fame. It's running all around. The kids, or the boys especially, are doing this
thoughts
one.
and prayers.
Budweiser, what's up?
Hello? Ew.
What's up? Nothing, B. Just watching the game, having a bud. What's up with you? Nothing. Watching the game, having a bud. True. What's up? Yo, who's that? Yo, pick up the phone. Hello? What's that? Yo, where's Dookie? Yo, Dookie! Yo. What's that? What's that? Hold on. Hello? So what's up, B? Watching the game, having a bud. True.
They literally took. So this is when Budweiser was at their peak, right? I think this was the heartbreak of the whole can and going woke and all that stuff, because you're like, this was Budweiser. This is what Bud Light was like. But they took guys lying around having a beer and made it interesting and funny, and then made it a cultural icon to where people were saying this in the office.
Oh,
and,
yeah.
I mean, there's a brilliance there that's kind of amazing.
Yeah. What they did is it's that commercial is a slice of life commercial. The development, if I remember correctly, it's been, at least over a decade. That I believe it's, as far as reading the question, that the idea, I think it was developed. It's either the first guy on the phone or the fourth guy, the guy that's bald that has the glasses. I think it's one of the two of them. It's their original idea, because they literally used to greet each other like that, doing the WaaasUp.
Right.
And so that was the idea. Is what it was just a slice of life. They're like, let's just capture how guys hang out and talk to each other. And as soon as you heard that phone call, if you're a guy and you're like, hey, what's up? What are you doing? Nothing. Watching the game. You're like, I've been there.
Yeah.
I've had that conversation
100%.
with my friend. And the idea that it's very casual, but then something gets exciting, and then it's this entire group. So they take it from a very, very understandable guy conversation that draws the males in, and then they create this dynamic with friends. Now, if you've had a strong friend group, especially guys, you all have your inside jokes.
Yep.
You all have your inside nicknames. You all have your inside greetings. Everybody has them. And that's the other thing. The reason this resonates is because they took that regular commonality, the greeting that every male group has, and some female groups, same thing. And they just brought it onto the air. It's instantly relatable.
Airing at halftime during the 2000 Super Bowl. We're that old, Bill.
Yeah.
This Budweiser ad about friends talking in shorthand instantly went viral, adapted from a short film by Charles Stone III, who went on to direct 2002's Drumline and Uncle Drew, among others. Stone also directed this ad, casting himself and his buds, preserving the sense of realism, friendship, and silliness that made it such a classic. The guys are great, the sentiment is great, and it's all anchored by Stone as the dude on the couch who initiates the now famous phone
there
call.
it is. First guy.
So,
So
first guy was the guy who directed that.
God. Okay, now, sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
Oh, no, out of those, what do you think are the most effective ones? What do you like and what do you dislike, and why? What do you think, if you had to say out of those five, and you were sitting at the table saying, this is the one that I want to advertise my product, what is the one you choose and why?
For me, two things. So one, E-Trade, I didn't know much about, but I remember because I was young, it was 2008. I wasn't doing day trading. But I remember when I started to get into day trading. Remember when I started to get into it, I remembered that. I was like, I had the babies, E-Trade. So I went that. So that was effective. It probably made me a customer.
Yeah.
Obviously, EDS, an HP company, we didn't use. Reebok, it was funny, entertaining. FedEx, I don't think it was compelling to want to use their product as a result of his entertaining. But I think as a guy with that Budweiser, you're like, yeah, I want that, man.
Yeah,
I want to chill with my bros like that.
Yeah, that's interesting because I would rank the FedEx Castaway and the E-Trade Baby as the top two.
Yeah,
and then I would put the Budweiser. The Budweiser to me becomes transcendent to a certain point because of what it does, but they only advertise the product beginning and end. There's kind of an end thing there. The E-Trade is more of kind of a natural. Based on the visual and the baby.
Right.
He's talking about the product, talking about it, and he's got the big pile of cash. It's a nice narrative. The FedEx, the only reason I would push that up on the list, maybe above the Budweiser, is because the constant visual reference. It's a Castaway from Tom Hanks, so it's easily identifiable, and they're holding the FedEx box prominently throughout the entire commercial. So the actual advertiser logo is there, which we don't see as prominently in the others. Terry Tate, I think, is fantastic. That's one of my favorites ever. But
Did
based
you
on
buy
memorable
a Reebok shoes? As
no,
a
but
result, right?
for me though it's not necessarily motivation to purchase the product. For me, it's memorable. Do I remember that idea? And and the idea of that is McDonald's. Everyone knows McDonald's, but McDonald's spends billions on advertising every year because when you're hungry, they want that to be the first name that pops in your head. That's the reason it's there. They know you have hundreds of possible choices, and that's why they're reinforcing their brand. Same thing on some of those others. I think the cat herder one is a partial waste of money. I think it is a brilliantly executed advertisement.
Right.
I think it is,
and nobody knows who EDS is.
and that's the problem. I think it is phenomenally ineffective at having you remember what the product is or the advertiser. And this is what you could do. This is how I would change this. Okay. I would turn, and the problem is your time constraint, because the way they tell the story of the cat herder is fantastic. The problem is we don't have it as setup. So what I would have is I would have one or two people saying, going through this financial thing, it's ridiculous. It's like herding cats. You have that.
That's good.
And then I would even put a picture behind and go, my grandpa was a cat herder. And then you go into the story. And what you do during the cat herder thing, and this is what I would have done, is when they're doing the cat herders, that we are, and whatever the company is, we are these cat herders. We're this. And then on their jackets, there's a logo. Not large, but it looks weathered. And so you're reinforcing the visual of the logo. Then at the end, you come back and you can do something else, but it's a punchline. There's something there where the guy's like, well, that explains a lot about your weird family, or something like there's something that's a closer there to go back. That's cat herder. And I don't know what that is yet. We'd have to workshop it, but there has to be a close about, but they're back in the office, and then you reinforce the brand name and everything else. I don't see the problem solution setup inside of that one. It's a brilliantly executed visual and story. I just don't think it sells.
It's a Saturday Night Live skit.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is.
Entertainment Weekly got that right. It's a funny Saturday Night Live skit.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we should just go back to what my pops did with wine glasses on waterbeds. And communicate.
Again, the basic core of advertising in many ways is problem solution, and some of that is there. The Budweiser problem solution. It's about community. It's about connecting with your bros, over this beer. And having that's what it is. It's the idea that by doing an
emotional connection.
Exactly. That's exactly. It's a great emotional sell.
So when we come back, we're going to get to You Choose the News on the Jef and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS. we keep. Yeah, the ones that they're like.
Move on from fun to the major stories of the day. U.S. Supreme Court case as to whether or not Trump can be on the ballot in Colorado being argued today. We're going to cover that and so much more. A bill introduced down at the state capitol that will prevent you from bringing your gun to church. You're not going to want to miss it. You're listening to the Jef and Bill Show
On News Talk 710 KNUS.
Good morning, Mile High City. Jeff Hunt here with the Jef and Bill Show, 7 a.m. on Thursday, February 8th. We're getting some weather coming in here, so enjoy the nice morning while you can. Looks like we may end up with some PM afternoon rain and snow, and then tomorrow light snow, and Saturday snow is likely. So make sure you get out and get your activities done today. Good morning, Bill.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. How you doing?
We are off and running covering the news today.
Yeah.
There's a lot to talk about. The big case before the U.S. Supreme Court, oral arguments today on whether or not Trump should be on the ballot. Denver Post going, this is really simple. He shouldn't be on the ballot. Wall Street Journal going, this is really simple. He should absolutely be on the ballot. We'll be covering and diving into all those details, and we want to hear from you. 303-696-1971. That's the call-in line, 303-696-1971. Should Donald Trump be on the ballot in Colorado? So we're going to cover that and a whole lot more, but let's get to the news with Mr. Blake Olson.
What's up? I had to bring it.
It's Super Bowl Sunday.
Yeah, it is. If you're just waking up right now, you guys were talking Super Bowl commercial. So I have to chime in. Budweiser, Clydesdales with the field goal.
Yes.
It's just the first time I saw that was classic. This is like 25, 30 years ago, probably. And then the I Love You Man guy, I met him at Super Bowl 30, I think it was. Oh, wow. I don't know if you remember that one. You guys are too young. I love you, man. That was a classic. All right, 35 and mostly cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the low 50s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, as Jef and Bill just discussed, the U.S. Supreme Court will hear arguments today on whether former President Trump can run for president again. The High Court will hear the case over the Colorado Supreme Court ruling that disqualified Trump from the state's ballot. The Colorado justices ruled that Trump was ineligible because he took part in what they say was an insurrection during the Capitol riot. Tucker Carlson with a huge interview with Vladimir Putin tonight, exclusively on X.
The interview will be released on Carlson's website and X profile at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It will mark the first interview that Putin has given to a Western journalist since the invasion of Ukraine almost 2 years ago. Carlson says he has a duty to tell the truth about what's happening in the war between Russia and Ukraine. He also claimed Western news outlets are pushing propaganda, and Americans have the right to know what's actually going on. I'm Mark Mayfield.
A man is under arrest for his alleged involvement in a plan to steal nuclear missile secrets, ostensibly for China. The Justice Department announced that Chuguang Wang Gong stole files while working at a California company that develops tech to detect and track nuclear missiles for the U.S. government. Fort Collins police officers shot an armed man Wednesday afternoon. Police were called to the intersection of West Elizabeth and South Shield Street on a report of a man who dropped a gun. When officers arrived, they reportedly saw the suspect holding the gun again and threatening a woman pushing two small children in a stroller. And the officers shot him when he refused to drop the gun. The man was taken to the hospital and treated for his injuries, and he is expected to survive. The last original member of the Spinners has died. Henry Fambrough was a baritone in the legendary R&B group, which started in 1954. I'll Be Around, Could It Be on Falling in Love, One of a Kind, and, of course, The Rubber Band Man. One of my brother's favorite songs. Love the Spinners. So rest in peace, Mr. Fambrough. All right, sports. Kobe Bryant, they're going to unveil his statue outside the arena tonight, and the Nuggets go for 3 straight this evening against those Lakers in LA at 8 o'clock. Hockey, Avalanche and Carolina tonight at 5 o'clock, looking to get back on the winning track. But Super Bowl commercials, guys, I just, I like them, but at the same time, I don't like being interrupted when I'm watching the game. I really don't. I never watch the halftime show. I never watch it. Never.
The one they did with Snoop Dogg and kind of back to like the 80s, 90s rap, that was the best Super Bowl halftime I had seen in a long time.
Yeah,
they don't really go back to country anymore. I wish they would get some country music artists back into Super Bowl
I wish they would go back to? How about marching bands?
Yeah.
Super Bowl 1. Super Bowl 1 was awesome. I mean, because I know you're laughing, but if you go back, it was Grambling's marching band, and they always put on a show. Any HBCU marching band will put on a show. And if you go back to that footage, now I didn't see it, Jeff, believe it or not, even though I'm old enough to have seen it technically, but they put on a show. It was great. The Grambling. How about marching bands again in the Super Bowl?
There you go. That'd be
right?
fun. That'd be refreshing. There was that one a few years ago of The Weeknd, and he was like
Yes.
wandering around in a maze of mirrors. And
Yes.
you're just like, what am I watching here? There was one where she like came down. Who's it? Lady Gaga came down from the rafters and stuff. It's quite a production. It really is kind of an American holiday. I think they should give everybody a Monday off.
Now we know why.
Bowl too.
Do you guys remember why they started the big Super Bowl halftime show? Why it became super popular?
No.
Yeah. No, don't.
I have no idea.
Yeah.
Money.
Well, money. Yeah. Yes, it is. It's absolutely money because they lost their audience.
Oh, that's
during the halftime.
true.
Now, here's the story.
Great point. Great point.
The story is this is the story. There was once upon a time, I'm so old, back in my day, when the kids, when we watched the thing and we only had like 3 channels on the television.
What's up?
Yeah, what's up? All right, back in those days, there was a show called In Living Color.
Yes.
And In Living Color did a special Super Bowl halftime show. They advertised it and said, we're going to go live when the Super Bowl goes to halftime, and we're going to go right up to the kickoff coming back. We're going to give you halftime entertainment. And I think it was around over 30%. I want to say it's like 40% of the audience tuned away from the Super Bowl halftime show. And the Super Bowl said, never again will we allow them, because their advertisers are coming back going, you promised us this audience.
Right.
Because there's some guarantees built into those contracts, and they didn't deliver, so they had to give some money back. So Blake's right. It's about money. Now, here are the 2 big trivia questions. The year that In Living Color stole all the audience, who was that halftime performer? It's actually a group. It's an organization.
What year was that?
Oh, I don't remember. But once I say the organization,
90s?
it's got to be mid-90s.
Was it Up With People?
Yes, it was.
Was
it? was.
Going back to a conversation about The Simpsons.
It's Up With People. Up With People was the halftime show. Absolutely, Jeff. The fact that you didn't know that, Jeff, and you pulled that out, I am super impressed. So, yeah, it's Up With People. So they came back the very next year. Super Bowl came back, and the Super Bowl halftime show starred, who could you? Who would be the one person in that early 90s that you could drop that would be like, oh, this is
Michael
different?
Jackson.
Exactly.
Was that Michael Jackson?
It was Michael Jackson.
Wow.
So you go from Up With People to Michael Jackson. If you go back and you look at the history of the Super Bowl halftime shows, there's one year, oh God, I want to say it's the 70s, where they're acting out a military battle with cannons on the field.
Yes, I've seen
that. Was the show.
Yep.
Civil War reenactments.
Yes. I mean, at this
No
point,
doubt.
just go to the UFC fights. I mean, who cares? Yeah.
Right. I remember seeing footage of that. In fact, I'm gonna go look at that today.
Yeah.
I gotta get footage of that one.
see,
I forgot
That's
about
the one
that.
that if they would come in and say, we're gonna recreate this battle, I'd be like, all right.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily have to see, The Weeknd.
right.
I'm okay with that. I don't have to see I want to see this fight. Yeah.
And all I can say is I'm proud I missed, I think it was Jewel, Super Bowl 32, Broncos' first victory. I stood outside the stadium and watched the sun go down at halftime.
Oh,
and
nice.
it was awesome. And I missed the halftime show, and it was perfect.
Oh,
hey,
that's great.
32 in Wheat Ridge, 33 in Parker, 35 in Denver. Blake Olson, News Talk 710, KNUS.
There's a showdown today at the U.S. Supreme Court as Donald Trump argues, and his team argues, that they should be on the ballot. The state of Colorado and a handful of, I guess you'd call them Republicans. They self-identify as Republicans.
That's interesting, isn't it?
Trying to keep them off. I know who they are. And they haven't really, some of them have tried to run for office, never really won. One of them, Norma Anderson, the Denver Post did a big story on and kind of lauded her. Denver Post top editorial that this is an easy decision for the U.S. Supreme Court to keep Donald Trump off. Here's their arguments, and this is what I want to hear from you. Please, 303-696-1971. That's 303-696-1971. Or text us on the 710 KNUS app. Denver Post arguing Donald Trump absolutely engaged in an insurrection, and in doing so, he's a threat to the United States. And the Constitution, Article 14, makes the argument that because he took an oath and then engaged in an insurrection, he broke his oath and he should not be held or allowed to hold the office of president ever again. So this is a lawfare engagement primarily by Democrats and liberals and never Trumpers to try to make sure that Donald Trump couldn't possibly be elected. Not that he would lose in an election, or that he wouldn't be successful in an election, but that he couldn't possibly be the president. The argument made by the Denver Post essentially boils down to this assumption that Donald Trump made or participated in an insurrection. But even here it is from the Post. But even if there is any ambiguity about the events of that day, can there be any doubt that President Trump's conduct since then, attacking the court system and individual judges, asserting fraud in any situation he didn't win, constitutes continuing an insurrection? So because Donald Trump criticizes the courts in which he's being tried by the radical left, he is, quote, continuing insurrection. They're setting him up here. So they drag this guy into court, utilize lawfare, and because he doesn't like it, they say he's continuing an insurrection. Following its decision, the Colorado Supreme Court received a flurry of death threats. I guess Donald Trump's guilty of that as well. He has total control over those people. If the U.S. Supreme Court rules against President Trump, does anyone doubt there will be more violence? In terms of who gets to decide, there is no specificity in Section 3, just as there is no specificity about who decides whether someone is 35 years old, or natural born to be eligible to be president. You're either a natural born or you're over 35. There's no ambiguity over that. The normal course of any legal proceeding is that a trial court decides questions of fact, and the District Court of Denver found that Trump had engaged in an insurrection. Wasn't that like a 5-day trial in which he didn't even really participate in? There was no cross-examination. There was no real review of the facts. For those who, of course, the left's going to get into Richard Nixon. You got to throw that in. For those of you who followed the Supreme Court, many would agree that the high water mark of the modern era was the 1974 Nixon paper case, in which the Supreme Court unanimously ruled 8-0 against President Richard Nixon and ordered him to turn over White House tapes, which he agreed to without any violence. Included in that unanimous decision were 5 justices appointed by Republican presidents. For many of us, the low water mark was Bush v. Gore. So, they're trying to pull in all these other cases to make you feel like, one, Trump is like Nixon, or remember when the Supreme Court disappointed us with the 5-4 decision with then Governor George W. Bush's father in the majority appointing all these Supreme Court justices. So they're trying to poison the well in their argument. That's a logical fallacy where you don't address the facts of the case, but you look at trying to steer it in your direction by bringing in other things, right? Bush v. Gore, the Nixon paper case. On today's court, the 6 justices who were appointed by Republican President George H.W. Bush, George W. Bush, and Donald Trump all claim to be originalists, and the justices with the most natural leadership on this case is Justice Neil Gorsuch. Gorsuch wrote in a book, A Republic If You Can Keep It, a good originalist judge will not hesitate to preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution's original meaning, regardless of contemporary political consequence. It's hard to see how the court could rule against either the plain language of the Constitution or the right of the state of Colorado to interpret its election law. And then they get into a question Again, this is the Denver Post. If Donald Trump is the Republican nominee in 2024 and Joe Biden beats him, will Trump accept the results of this election? If Donald Trump is elected president in 2024 and the 22nd Amendment to the Constitution prohibits him from seeking a third term, will he accept it? If the Supreme Court rules against President Trump, are the justices willing to go to work the next day without first summoning the Capitol Police and significant reinforcements to guard the court? This is the Denver Post in what has got to be the most idiotic op-ed ever published in this newspaper, and that's a low bar. What does any of that have to do with the facts of the case? The facts of the case are whether or not the state of Colorado can just unanimously declare Donald Trump is not going to be counted on the ballot because we believe he engaged in an insurrection. Did we really try him? Well, we did a show trial, but we just really feel that. And then we have all these other questions like, is he going to accept the results moving forward? Will he just get rid of a third of the 22nd Amendment and seek a third term? What about the safety of the Supreme Court? Where were these people after Roe v. Wade was struck down and you had actual death threats against U.S. Supreme Court justices, and they didn't seem to care about that? Now they're really concerned. If Donald Trump loses this, then we may not be able to protect the U.S. Supreme Court. They didn't care about that at all. This entire op-ed, the fact that the Denver Post published this, is a shame. It's a sham. It has nothing to do with the facts of the case. They're just spewing anti-Trump hatred, and that is the basis of this entire effort to keep Donald Trump off the ballot in the state of Colorado. That's all it is. This is direct election interference. It's an effort to discredit Republicans in the state of Colorado, and the Wall Street Journal got this right, which is a much superior outlet than the Denver Post. Wall Street Journal, editorial board, top trending article yesterday, the Supreme Court's Colorado Trump test, a 9-0 ruling against Colorado's decision to banish Donald Trump from the ballot would be best for the country and the court. This is easy. It should be a 9-0 decision.
Now, Jeff, I'm going to interrupt and take this in a different direction just for a sec, not dealing with the insurrection.
Fired up over this
no.
stuff,
Yeah, you are. And I like the emotion. I want to chat with a caller just called in, gentleman, Paul. He's calling us all the way from Nebraska. And the reason I want to talk to him a little bit is because this is a little bit of a sciencey thing. He's listening to us on his terrestrial radio. He's catching us. We are skipping through the atmosphere right now and going all the way to Nebraska. Paul, how you doing?
I was trying to say, because of the overcast,
yes,
that I'm getting you clearly. I'm hoping you can hear me.
Yes, we got you loud and clear, Paul. Where in Nebraska are you?
I have, south of Gary. Anyway,
wow.
I have a solution that really matters.
Yes, sir.
Last couple months back, Cruz of Texas, the senator, was getting ready to try and impeach President Biden for not being competent.
Yeah.
I have a much simpler thing he should say, and he should do it right now before the Supreme Court messes up. He should say, I expect to be President Trump's vice presidential candidate, or if he is prevented through some stupidity, and I would use those terms, I will stand for him.
Oh.
And I will be the candidate that you're all afraid of with Trump. I understand the Constitution better than any other candidate for president in this country. You let me at what Trump was trying to do, and you will get to remember for a long time.
That
should make all the people, turn pale and squat and say, "Oh, geez." That would be worth hearing.
That is interesting. I'd like to see a politician come out and say, hey, I will take it in his stead. I would think that Trump may want to anoint that person first rather than grabbing the mantle. But it's an interesting idea. And this is what I want to ask you, Paul, is I want to explore.
Can you imagine how much fun Trump would have running around the country making for honest elections if he's not allowed to run as president?
Oh, yeah. In fact, this is the idea. I think it's the idea of Obi-Wan Kenobi in Star Wars, that if we go ahead and we kill Donald Trump, whoever does it, that, electorally, that he is going to be more powerful than we ever could imagine. I think that's what's going to happen. You give him this breath, and I think it would be phenomenally stupid. But I've got a question about Nikki Haley for you. Not if you support her or not, but I have a theory, Paul. I have a theory that the reason that Nikki Haley is continuing to run in the primary after everybody else has fallen out, the reason that she continues to accept all of these losses is because she wants to be that just-in-case candidate. Now, my theory is that at the convention, she then shows up and she's the only one with delegates if Trump can't run. There's no real other choice as far as the mechanism is concerned. I'm just guessing. Paul, what do you think about that?
I'm just saying, she's hoping for some fame and some money.
Yeah.
It's like, what else can I do? What would be more fun?
I like that, Paul. That's fantastic. Thank you so much for giving us a call, and I hope Nebraska treats you well today. That's amazing.
Good text message here. If you ever have challenges with the signal, you can always listen on the 710 KNUS app.
Yes.
A lot of people listen just directly via the app.
Yeah, or just grab a large wire that's near you. No, I think that's interesting. I think that it's a weird argument that based on the 14th Amendment, how do we disqualify Trump?
Right.
And the linchpin for me is, how do we determine whether or not he's an insurrectionist? What's the mechanism?
You actually
for
have
that?
a trial, but the trial they did in Colorado District Court was like 5 days.
And this is the thing about that. And this is the question is, I keep hearing on the Trump side of things that they didn't have due process or their day in court, but there was a procedure. It was not a criminal procedure, but there was a court. Scott Gessler showed up, made arguments. They had witnesses, and they could argue the issues about the 14th Amendment. I understand there wasn't a criminal investigation, but the idea that there wasn't a due process, I understand not the criminal due process, but the idea that they didn't get a chance to make his case.
But you see what they're doing. Everybody sees what they're doing.
Oh,
right?
absolutely. Yeah.
So here's the Wall Street Journal.
Thin,
The easiest way to dispatch Colorado's ruling is with a textualist analysis that the president isn't covered by Section 3. The argument is that the president isn't, quote, an officer of the United States, unquote, as defined by the Constitution. Earlier visions of Section 3 included the president and vice president, but these offices were scrapped from the final text. So you want to go back to the original intent, what was intended here. That's in part because the 14th Amendment's authors were mainly worried that Confederate rebels would be elected to Congress and that President Andrew Johnson would appoint them to executive branch offices. The Constitution's appointments, commissions, and impeachment clauses separately refer to the president and, quote, officers of the United States. If the president were an officer, these clauses would be superfluous and illogical. Article 2 gives the president the power to appoint, quote, officers of the United States with the advice and consent of the Senate. The president doesn't nominate himself. Wall Street Journal making this very clear. Yeah. This doesn't fit with the original intent of what was written here. You don't have to get into politics. If you feel Donald Trump should be tried for insurrection, try him in criminal court as violating the law of being an insurrectionist. But everybody sees what this is.
Yeah. See, now, Jeff, I disagree with the premise of the Wall Street. This is the interesting part. I agree with the Wall Street Journal's conclusion. I disagree with their premise. Okay. I don't think their premise is solid. And I don't think the premise of, if we talk about the intent of the founding fathers in the 14th Amendment, I don't think the argument is as solid as people think. I understand and I respect the issues and the facts that you just brought forward. The issue that I've got is we do have contemporaneous writings and other laws that were enacted at the time in which the president is referred to as an officer of the United States. It was almost colloquial in times as far as different writings and different laws that were enacted. So there is some malleability on there. The other thing I've got is, if we're talking about the intention of the 14th Amendment, I have a hard time wrapping my head around the intent being that we need to ban the insurrectionists from Congress, but we can have a president that did engage in insurrection. I have a hard time thinking that would be their intent, that they would say, well, obviously they can't go to Congress, but president, the one office out of that executive, out of the three branches that we would be okay with putting an insurrectionist in is the one in which they control the military. Really? That's the part that I don't think that I disagree with the Wall Street Journal's premise. I don't believe in any way, shape, or form that the founding fathers intended to say that someone who engages in insurrection in the U.S. is going to be okay to be our commander in chief.
So then define who gets to choose whether or not someone engaged in an insurrection.
There's our $10,000 question.
Section
That's
3
it.
notably doesn't authorize state courts or officials to enforce its provisions or specify a process for determining whether individuals have, quote, engaged in insurrection and how to disqualify them from serving in government. Instead, the 14th Amendment empowers Congress to enforce Section 3 by enacting appropriate legislation. Congress did so in 1870 by requiring federal prosecutors to bring writs of quo warranto to disqualify office holders.
Yeah, so I do agree that the linchpin in this is how do we define insurrection? How is that? Is it criminal?
And
what
who
do
decides?
we do?
And who
Yep,
decides?
and who decides? And
Right.
I guarantee you, it's not the Secretary of State. I guarantee you that is not the
it's
person
definitely
that is
not Jenna
empowered.
Griswold.
No way
Oh
in
my
heck. Now, I
gosh.
want to hear 303-696-1971. Give us a call. How do you define insurrection? Do you come down with a post? Do you come down with the Wall Street Journal? As Jeff says, is this lawfare? And if it is, please explain to me how the lawfare is being engaged in by Republicans against Republicans. He brought that out. That's, I think, if it was all Democrats suing, I can see this as lawfare. Doesn't necessarily fall into that category if it's Republican on Republican. I'm curious.
This is all happening at the U.S. Supreme Court as we speak. We're tracking it through some of the live updates. Some liberals want Justice Thomas to recuse himself. Of course they do. I mean, this is unfortunately the state of our country right now, where
what do you think about
the
that in the
judges have got to step in.
Yeah.
And then everyone tries to paint the judges as being partisan as well.
Now, what do you think about the idea of recusal? Where do you sit on that based on Thomas? Because you understand their argument that Ginny was actively involved in the lead up to January 6th and the fake electors and everything else, that she was neck deep in that based on text messages and emails.
I don't think January 6th has anything to do with this.
Why not?
Because I don't think it was an insurrection.
Again, that we're working on definitions.
That's
but the issue, I understand that, but the issue being, that when Clarence Thomas's wife is working behind the scenes, in part, it's part of the issue inside of the case.
In part of what?
Hang on
a
sec.
rally?
Hold on. No. It's larger than that. And we've discussed this earlier, that the rally is the smokescreen cover for everything else that had been planned, everything else that had been laid out based on fake electors and rejecting votes and getting state legislators to then pick votes. That was the mechanism. And that's what Ginny Thomas was involved in planning. And she was involved in the mechanisms in order to execute that. And so the question is, since she was involved in that, and that is one of the issues when you're talking about in the arguments, when you're talking about whether or not Donald Trump engaged in insurrection, that is going to be one of the discussions, those behaviors. And because Ginny was involved in that behavior, is it an issue? I'm not saying he should or he shouldn't. I'm curious. I'm curious about what the caller's saying. 303-696-1971. Should Clarence Thomas recuse himself? Because I would bet that if a spouse of one of the liberal justices was in a similar situation, they would be screaming for recusal, screaming for it.
303-696-1971. We're up against a commercial break. Text us in on the 710 KNUS app. You're listening to the Jef and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Gunfight at the OK Corral today. U.S. Supreme Court hearing the case as to whether or not Donald Trump can remain on the ballot in Colorado. Oral arguments beginning in about 10 minutes, I believe. We're following this on scotusblog.com, where you can get kind of all the live updates there.
On a side note, isn't it funny that they always talk about oral arguments are beginning? What? As opposed to dance arguments? as opposed to calisthenic arguments? I mean, what else are we expecting here? I mean, or we're not showing up with cue cards. I just love the fact that they're like, well, it's oral arguments. And again, if I wanted to embarrass my family, I would make other references and say, now, wait a minute, but I'm not going to do that today. I just find that interesting that it's always oral arguments. When do they sit there and have the jazz interpretation of the case? Okay, sorry.
So over the course of about 80 minutes, they're given about half of that to Trump's team, about 30 minutes to the plaintiffs that are arguing that Trump shouldn't be on the ballot, and then another 10 minutes for questions. They'll interrupt. If you've never listened to oral arguments at the U.S. Supreme Court, it's like listening to a boxing match. They go back and forth, and it's really quite fascinating. So this is going to be key. This is going to get into the main decision. This is going to get into decisions across the country as to whether or not Donald Trump can be on the ballot. And I think Colorado has a strong history of sending wildly unconstitutional decisions all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court just to have them smacked down, like we did with Jack Phillips and Lori Smith. So Wall Street Journal arguing this is easy. It's a 9-0 decision to allow Trump on the ballot. It can be read clearly from the Constitution. So we'll have all that. We'll be tracking the oral arguments. We'll have the audio tomorrow. So it's a big day. We've got Ralph on the line. Ralph, Colorado Springs. What's up, my friend?
Well, to begin with, 90% of the work and the decision-making has already been done. You do oral arguments, sort of like icing on a cake.
Yeah.
Everything else is in the briefs.
Yep.
I don't know how long they are these days, but it used to be, I think, either 60 pages or 30 pages, plus or minus a little bit. So you've got all of the, how shall I say, everything there, including the heavy artillery, but now we're just going to have an oral skirmish for, what did you say, 40 minutes?
About 80 minutes, that's right.
Right, 40 minutes on the side. So the real question that I have is, are we looking at this as a red herring? Everybody is talking about insurrection, yet there's another way that you can disqualify Trump. And if you look at that 14th Amendment, what it says is there are 4 grounds for disqualification. One is, and I'm quoting, shall have engaged in insurrection. 2, or rebellion against the Constitution. Or 3, given aid to enemies thereof. Or 4, given comfort to enemies thereof. What I don't understand is no one is talking about the 3rd and 4th portion of that disqualification. And I'll just pose it as 2 questions to you guys. 1, did Trump, standing there for 3 hours doing nothing, give aid to the Proud Boys in storming the Capitol? He had a duty to act. He didn't. Okay. Second bite at this apple, my size, is did he give comfort to the enemies of the Constitution? Proud Boys. Did he tell them that they were wrong? No, he told them that he loved them. And now he's promising to give them pardons. I think that's comforting, don't you?
That's interesting.
No, I don't at all.
That's...
I don't at all. I think you're reading into that. Remember, Ralph, this was created following a civil war. We took bullets and we're firing at each other, and a whole bunch of unarmed people went to the Capitol and somehow engaged in the same process as declaring secession from the United States, organizing an army and going to war for years against the United States. You're saying that because Donald Trump didn't act for 3 hours, he's in the same category as the South during the Civil War?
No, what I'm saying is I'm a hillbilly from the area of Missouri that sort of was 6 of one and half dozen of the other. And if you gave comfort to Jesse James or Quantrill, let them how shall I say, hid them in your barn, this applied to you. You're talking about the big wars on the East Coast. I'm talking about the little wars, the guerrilla wars that also went on, that this was also aimed at.
Now, this is interesting. Okay, I'm sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
No, but you're putting people that went to the Capitol, a vast majority of them peacefully, right? Some got out of control. We're not dismissing that, but a vast majority went peacefully. You're putting those people in the same category as those that sought to secede from our country and force our nation into a war. I think that's a wild reading of history and of this Constitution.
Well, it would help if you actually read the Constitution instead of blathering about Civil War. The question
That's the intent of when this was written, Ralph. Come on, man.
It's the words. Read the words. Don't tell me what the words say. Read the words. Pick up your handy-dandy copy of the Constitution and read those four alternatives.
Now, Ralph, you brought up something very interesting, something that I have to admit I had not considered before. It is an interesting dot to connect. I'm not sure I'm there with you yet, but I would love to hear what Jeff thinks about this, and even callers as well, 303-696-1971. What I want to know is the connection that you just made, and I'd like Jeff to react to this, between the pardons and the actions on January 6th. The idea that President Trump promises to pardon all the people convicted on January 6th, does that then qualify to give aid and comfort to the enemy? And the reason I bring it to that level is because we have numbers of people that have been convicted of seditious conspiracy. So if he pardons people, so if he pardons people that were involved in seditious conspiracy, at that point, does he then give aid and comfort to the enemies of America?
No.
Or
why not?
Or by promising to do so.
Yeah.
Does he give comfort?
Yeah. So explain to me why not.
We're not talking about the big battles of Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville and all that crap. We're talking about the tiny little guerrilla wars, brother killing brother in the hills of Missouri. So here's the thing, Billy. You're still not getting it.
Oh, yeah. I hear that all the time.
No, but the word is or, aid or comfort. It's not treason. Treason is aid and comfort. This is merely aid, free, or for comfort.
That's a good point.
Thanks.
That's a good point. Hey, thanks, Ralph. I really appreciate it. That's fantastic. So, I would love to hear, and we'll get to Brian on the phones in a second, the idea that Ralph, and again, I'm not agreeing with him per se, but I think it's an interesting conversation that we have people that have been convicted of seditious conspiracy against the United States. If President Trump pardons them, does that qualify as either aid or comfort? And then the insurrection thing kicks in. I
can't get to a place, guys, anywhere near where you are with regards to the fact that this was written when our country literally split in two. People grabbed bullets and fired them at each other. We went into a war, lost a lot of people. And yet, because Donald Trump says he's going to pardon some guys, he falls into the same category.
Well, no, pardon people that have been convicted in a court of law of seditious conspiracy. That's important. They weren't convicted of jaywalking. They weren't convicted of trespassing. They weren't convicted of some of the minor offenses that people that entered the Capitol that day were. This is organized seditious conspiracy. That's a different level. Address that.
Okay, so if he does it, that's one conversation, right? A campaign discussion. I'm gonna pardon January 6th because there's a lot of people in January 6th that got convicted for just simply walking around, right? And whether or not that was this seditious conspiracy, because you walked in velvet ropes, and put you in that category.
Nobody that walked in and just walked around the Capitol was convicted of seditious conspiracy. That's different. Right. Don't equate them. There is a different level. And that's why I did make the difference.
If you actually engage with harming law enforcement officers at the Capitol, you should be in jail. I don't disagree with that.
That's not my question. My question is about the pardon.
Trump says he's going to pardon January 6th.
Yeah.
Just because he says it doesn't mean he's giving aid to enemies.
If he does actually pardon them, does it then cross that Rubicon?
Then we can talk about that.
That's what I want to
time.
talk about.
And I may
Let's talk about it when we
disagree
come
with
back.
Trump on
Absolutely.
that. I may disagree with Trump on that
That's
because
why
if
this is
you
so much
are
fun.
actually engaging in assaulting law enforcement officers, you should be going to prison. Now, whether or not that qualifies as seditious conspiracy,
no, that's for me. That
because you assaulted a law enforcement officer, then there'd be a lot of BLM rioters that would be guilty of seditious conspiracy.
Oh, we got to talk about the callers. Here come the phone lines.
All the phone lines are full.
Yeah, we'll get to Brian. He's going to be first up. But let's take a break first. Let's take a break.
We are.
Yeah, we got to do that.
You're listening to the Jef and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
All right, phone lines are jam-packed and text messages pouring in on the 710 KNUS app. Give us a call if you'd like. We'll get a few lines open, 303-696-1971. Let's go to Brian. We going to Brian?
Yep. Hey,
All
Brian,
right.
how are you?
What's up, Brian?
Hey, first time talking to both of you, so excited about it.
Oh, it's nice to hear your voice, man.
It's a good show. And, you know, this whole thing, insurrection, I mean, just by sheer definition, it didn't occur. So anyone that can read a dictionary can know that that word is not pertain to this situation.
That's fair.
I thought what was interesting with Ralph is he brought up the or scenario.
Yeah.
And that requires definitions of aid, definitions of comfort, definitions of enemy of the country. And that's a rabbit hole you have to go down that obviously if you're on either side, you're going to go down that the hole of defending or the hole of saying, oh yeah, he gave aid and comfort. He gave aid and comfort.
Now, Brian, you and I have together gone down rabbit holes and off-air discussions. Let's together hold hands, jump down this rabbit hole. I think that's really interesting about the idea of how we define. I agree with you on the insurrection, but what about the aid and comfort? If Trump does pardon, and I'll focus on the people with seditious conspiracy, the others to me, I don't think rises that level. But do you think that would rise to the level of aid and comfort to the enemy?
Probably not, because again, somebody said that these guys were seditious behavior.
Yeah.
And again, Billy, we're hanging all these people on a hat that on a word when there was 500,000 people there.
Yeah.
1,000 were arrested, and a fraction of those committed violent crimes.
That is all
so
true.
We're looking at like 1-2%. And we're going to group everybody in on that. If there was really an insurrection or really something to overthrow the government, 500,000 people could do a lot more damage than what occurred.
And it was 10 members
in Nancy Pelosi's office.
Yeah,
10 people have been convicted at trial of seditious conspiracy.
Exactly. I know.
Right. So talk about the biggest, largest peace test in history, probably. And we're using a word called insurrection. Colorado showed its cards. Supreme Court in Colorado is the most partisan court in the country. And so now legitimized to everyone because they showed their cards. And all this was a play to put Colorado in the media spotlight for guess who? Jared Polis.
And Jenna.
Because he's got aspirations to move on.
Yeah.
All this ever was a smokescreen for Polis in Colorado, that we're doing the right thing. So it's
Brian,
just a joke.
Brian, did you hear this? Now it is a focus on Polis. I would also say that Jenna wanted some shine too. Did you hear the news that she actually asked to have 15 minutes to argue in front of the Supreme Court herself? She wanted to step in front of the Supreme Court so that then, in my opinion, my mind here, she wanted that moment. So then when she turns around and runs for the next office, she can say, and I've argued in front of the Supreme Court. Yeah, she asked for that, and I think they denied it. I don't know. But yeah, did you hear about that?
Well, probably. Yeah. I didn't hear about it.
Yeah.
But again, the
you're right.
Secretary of State, who's a partisan hack, shouldn't be making decisions for any state on who should be on the ballot.
That's
I mean,
fair.
the whole thing was just processed wrong. It's a big joke and a scam. And I respect Ralph, but if you have to go or and make definitions, come on, I can read the Constitution.
Go forward,
I got
don't
a
go back.
pocket Constitution. I drive around with in my
Do me a favor,
car.
Brian. Go forward, don't go back, because Ralph can't call in or respond to anything else. You can
No,
say
you're
that,
right.
Yeah,
Brian, how do you think
appreciate
the
that, man.
Supreme Court's going to rule today?
I think, God, I'm worried about Roberts because he's scared now. But I think they come back with barely enough to say he's on the ballot, and they throw this joke out. But you know what? For the country, they should come back 9-0. They really should come back 9-0, and that says, you know what? We're going to let the voters decide, not a governor and a Secretary of State who we all know are left. And that's how it should play out. But oh no, we're going to
Now,
be,
Brian?
it's going to be party line vote, and even Roberts might jump, but thank God Trump got 3, so we can override him.
Okay. Now, Brian, publicly, I'm going to announce this, that here it is on February 8th in 2024, publicly, Brian and Bill agree on something completely and totally agree. I absolutely agree with you. It is 9-0. 9-0 has to be the ruling, and you're absolutely right. This thing has to be thrown out. I could not agree with more. Thank you so much. I appreciate the call, man.
All right.
Hope you call us again.
Thank
Have
you.
a good weekend, man. Take care.
We've Brian's line is now open. You can give us a call at 303-696-1971. We're up against a commercial break. We've got less than a minute. Stephanie, John, have them stick on.
Yeah. I wouldn't want to give Stephanie only a minute or so. I'll talk to him off air. We've got a guest coming up, Joshua Sharf. We'll talk about how we can arrange to have them come back and join us. So I'm going to jump over and chat with them for a second.
Yeah. So stick around with us. This is the big conversation of the day. About to go into oral arguments with regards to whether or not Donald Trump should remain on the ballot in Colorado, or whether or not he engaged in an insurrection. And in doing so, Article 14 of the U.S. Constitution prevents him from doing that. So lots to debate, as you probably heard on the first hour. So you're going to want to stick around. This is all going to be discussed. Let us know, should Donald Trump remain on the ballot in the state of Colorado? Is Jenna Griswold, Jared Polis, the rest of them right in trying to keep him off to, quote, preserve democracy? Never a dull day in the state of Colorado. You're listening to the Jef and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KN.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes, all in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Say goodbye to clutter and hello to convenience when you experience organization transformation in your home. Roll 'em Out Shelves, your clutter transformation experts, create affordable Colorado-crafted organized storage solutions. These custom options will maximize and organize your kitchen and bath storage as Roll 'em Out Shelves carefully designs and builds roll-out drawers to fit your space perfectly. To clear the clutter, contact owners Joyce and Brent at Roll 'em Out Shelves to schedule your free in-home estimate today.
There is no kumbaya here today.
No.
We are following the Supreme Court oral arguments, Trump v. Anderson, as to whether or not Donald Trump can remain on the ballot in Colorado. So all of this happening, we're going to pull audio for tomorrow's show as to how this all plays out. We may not have a decision for a while on this, but the whole nation is watching as once again Colorado, in my opinion, makes bad unconstitutional decisions, sends them all the way up to the U.S. Supreme Court and gets just shot down. So, Jef and Bill show. Good morning, Jeff.
Yeah.
Good morning, Bill.
I'll play along with you. The internal monologue.
8 a.m. Good morning, Bill. Great to be with you, brother.
Hey, good morning. Great to be with you, too. This has been a lot of fun. We've got a really interesting discussion. We got guests coming up, and we'll continue that.
I mean, the nature of insurrection, the nature of aiding enemies, all that stuff. Does Donald Trump, can a secretary of state say, wow, like they did in Maine? Just don't. I think you engaged in insurrection.
Yeah.
I declare.
Yes. Yeah. The founding fathers set it up so that one office, that one elected office, has all of the power. And conversely, did Donald Trump unintentionally maybe play his own Uno reverse card in promising to pardon people convicted of seditious conspiracy? If he does that then rise to the level of giving aid or comfort to the enemy? I think that's an interesting question. I'm not sold on it, but earlier Ralph brought that question up, and I think it's fun.
And then the Denver Post gets into this bizarre hypotheticals. Well, if he gets elected again, he may not accept the restrictions on the 22nd Amendment and seek a third term, and we're going to have a dictator and all this stuff. So you get these arguments that just spill out into, just pure Trump derangement syndrome. But then there's actual things to be debated within the Constitution, right?
Yeah, there are.
So if you missed any of that, go to the 710 KNUS website app, download the podcast. We'll continue this conversation. But let's get to the news with Blake Olson.
All right, guys. Hey, if you want to see what inciting a riot looks like, just watch the video of Ray Epps. That'll show you.
Right.
34 and partly cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the low 50s. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, the Supreme Court hearing a case today that would determine whether or not former President Trump is eligible to run for president. The Supreme Court of Colorado ruled in December that Trump took part in what they call an insurrection during the Capitol riot and removed the former president from the state's ballot. A decision is expected before next month's Super Tuesday primaries. The 5 Marines missing after a helicopter crash have been found dead. The Marines were headed to San Diego Tuesday on a training flight from Creech Air Force Base near Las Vegas. The helicopter was found Wednesday in Pine Valley, just over 40 miles east of San Diego. There's no relief from the weather in California after days of record rainfall that caused hundreds of mudslides. Another storm has triggered flood watches in Southern California and winter weather advisories in the mountains. Delusional is what Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu calls Hamas's response to a deal to pause the fighting and free the remaining hostages in Gaza. U.S. Secretary of State Antony Blinken admits there are clear non-starters in Hamas's response, but adds it opens room for a hostage deal. More than 100 hostages are still being held by Hamas following their October 7th attack on Israel. A proposed ban on the controversial term excited delirium in Colorado is moving closer to becoming reality. The Colorado House Judiciary Committee voted 8-3 Tuesday to move House Bill 1103 forward, which would ban the use of the term in police training. It would also prohibit coroners from naming excited delirium as a cause of death. More than $100,000 in merchandise was stolen from a Boulder jewelry store on Tuesday. Dane Brown, owner of the Little Jewel, says a man entered the store and began browsing when three other men ran inside, stole jewelry, and took off with the merchandise.
It's violating. It's just a shame that the world's gotten this way, that you can't be safe and now you can't leave your doors open. You got to lock everything up, and you got to just be cautious.
A single employee was working at the store at the time. She was restrained by one of the suspects while the theft occurred. I think it goes back to soft on crime, guys. The Nuggets go for 3 straight tonight at 8 o'clock. Tip off against the Lakers. Kobe Bryant's statue unveiled this afternoon. And NHL, the Avalanche in Carolina tonight at 5 o'clock, looking to get back on the winning track. 31 in Greenwood Village, 30 in Thornton, and 34 in Denver. Jef and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Good Thursday morning to you, February 8th, 8:06 a.m. Jef and Bill show discussing the oral arguments taking place at the U.S. Supreme Court. Lots of text messages coming in. The insurrection is such a media-driven bunch of baloney. I remember laughing at the way the news blew this out of proportion. I catch the word was storm the Capitol. Or the catchword was storm the Capitol. Big media took that word and ran with it. Now almost everybody uses it. Personally, I don't think it matters if Donald Trump should or shouldn't be on the ballot. The people who brought this case to begin with are only doing it for some sort of moral compass background so that they can say, well, look, what I knew all along, Trump wasn't good, when the history looks back on Trump in less than a favorable way.
That's interesting. Virtue signaling.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And I know some of the people's on this case, and I think this is an accurate statement about them. I'd bet anything this never would have been brought up or even remotely stood a chance at winning in Colorado. I don't believe it was an insurrection. It was just a bunch of morons acting like 2-year-olds because they didn't get their way and accomplished nothing but making the right look even more foolish. And the reason why I became unaffiliated. So ashamed with some of the actions, but
I didn't expect
of January 6th, but not somebody to the point of going, obviously this was an insurrection.
Yeah, that's an interesting perspective, Texter. I appreciate that. Maybe call in later. That's interesting.
Yeah, give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. Was it an insurrection? Is the state of Colorado right to seek to keep Donald Trump off the ballot, or is this all election interference being run by the radical left? And the Trump campaign is right to push back, and the Supreme Court should strike this effort down. All right. Going to Jerusalem, live from Jerusalem, our friend Joshua Sharf.
It's like Monty Python, and now for something completely different.
Right.
Yes. We're going to check in with our friend Joshua Sharf, who's visiting with us all the way from Jerusalem. Good morning, Joshua. How you doing?
Good morning. Hold on a second. I'm busy spray painting Romans Go Home on the wall over here.
Nice job. That is fantastic. Oh, so you're traveling there. Tell us why you went to Jerusalem, what the reason is, and then what you're involved in today, please.
Yeah. So people have been doing this from the synagogue. They've been doing this from all over, coming over here and just sort of volunteering and helping out with work that needs to be done, but that can't get done because either the soldiers or the people have been pulled up, they were reservists, and so they're off fighting rather than doing this work. Or in the case of some of the agricultural work, a lot of it was done, used to be or was done up until recently by Palestinian Arabs. And so obviously there aren't a whole lot of them coming across the green line right now, which means that there's this risk of a lot of food rotting in the fields. Which would be a really bad thing. I mean, the country can afford sort of the short-term economic hit of having to pay more for food or import a little bit more, but in the long run, that's a problem if fields go fallow or if they don't get pruned properly or maintained properly. So you come over here and you do that sort of work. I'll be this morning, for instance, today. I am the reason I'm standing here waiting for a bus. is at a fairly busy bus station. There we go. See, is that I was out picking oranges. We all know about Israelis.
Oh, no
doing some
way.
oranges, so they yeah. I was at a time. There's an interesting backstory to this, to where this happened.
Yeah.
It's a kibbutz called Mefalsim, which is right near the Gaza border. And on October 7th, you may remember that there was a story about a kibbutz that had gotten, the gal who was in charge of security there, who was the head of the security team there, didn't wait for orders to get going. She just heard what was going on and said, listen, at the least we need to be prepared. Opened up the armory, got guns in it, got the rifles in the hands of her people there. And they survived. Nobody on her team was killed. I don't think anyone at the kibbutz was killed. And in return, they killed 25 or so Hamas fighters. And that's the place. That's the place.
No
so there's
way.
there's kind of a way. So there's kind of a good story there on a very bad day. That was one of the few good stories.
That is
that
wonderful.
come out of it.
And we did need to find those good stories. Yeah.
Well, it was pretty interesting. It wasn't just me. It was a whole bus of people that have been organized. This is how this works: is that a group will organize a bus. A kibbutz will say, "Well, we need help with X." Somebody will organize a bus. The bus should cut it out. And so there were about 30 of us who went out and did this. And picking oranges is not as easy as you think, but it's not dreadfully taxing work.
How do you do it? What's the procedure? What's the process? I'm curious. What's the professional? Because I've never talked to a professional orange picker, or at least an amateur.
Well, you still haven't, but you gotta reach out in there. They give you gloves because these things are really spiny and the leaves are very, very spiky. You can get cut up pretty easily if you're not careful. And so they give you gloves. You clip. You can't just pull it off like other fruit. You might be able to just pull off the stem.
Yeah.
Here in this case, you have to clip it off, and you have to clip it off really, really close. And they make a point of this. They want this stuff to be usable immediately, and so that somebody doesn't have to go back and redo your work. But then they let you take home a bunch of. You can bring a shopping bag and fill that up with oranges.
Oh,
if you
that
wanted.
is so nice.
And people do that. People take a few of their own. They're not gonna. The fact is, some of that is going to go to waste, and so you may as well take it. And that's how they say thank you to the volunteers. It was not all Jews.
Yeah.
There were a couple. There's a. It's the closest description I could get out of them was that it's sort of like a loot. You still there?
Yep. I got you. We got you. Yep.
Okay. No, the horn kind of cut everything out.
I like the horn. You're on the street waiting for a bus in Jerusalem right now.
I am. Yeah. And the blowing the horns here works about as well as it does 13th Avenue in Brooklyn. So it always makes things go faster. Anyway, it was they were not quite nuns. It's not really that sort of an order. They're Lutheran. They're like Lutherans, they said, and they have a mission here in. A permanent mission in Jerusalem, and on their days off, they try to do this sort of thing. There was a group of 4 Japanese students who were here, and I couldn't really get good answers from them about why they were there. What it was. I mean, it's not Japan is. You don't think of them as having a close, affiliation, emotional affiliation.
Yeah.
But they were there, and they said, "Listen, we're students. There's not much we can do, but this we can do."
Oh, this is wonderful. This is Jef and Bill talking to Joshua Sharf live from Jerusalem. He's flown over there, and he's volunteering and picking oranges. He's learning a new skill.
And Jews from all over the world are doing this. I mean, we've had other folks from Colorado head out there to really make sure they're doing their best to support their homeland. So. Joshua,
I won't be just. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I was going to ask you, what's the spirit like in Israel right now? I mean, it's been a few months since the October 7th attacks, but there's still a number of hostages that Hamas has. Give us a sense of how people are feeling there.
Well, look, I mean, at some level, daily life goes on, right? I mean, you still have to get to work. You still have to go back home. You still have to do all the stuff that you can do as a civilian. You just have to do all that. And so at some point that it never ever pushes the war to the back, but it does mean that that daily life still has a rhythm to it. I think in terms of the hostages, well, listen, you see signs all over the place that bring them home. Handmade signs. You see the red bannered signs, with the word "kidnapped" at the top on them. I think it was a bit of a deflating moment because I think last week when the government announced that maybe as many as 50 hostages had been killed, and they didn't release names, but I think there's a sense that people were sort of living with hope against hope. I mean, they're nothing if not realistic, but it was a little bit deflating. The hostages are not the center of the war. They're important to it, but getting rid of this threat is. I will tell you, while we were getting the security briefing, and before we went out into the orange groves, the description was if there's if you hear the siren go off, or if someone on the cell phone, they get an alert that there's a rocket coming in, don't stand out there and take pictures of it with your phone.
Oh, really? Bad idea, huh?
Yeah, I mean, they really, they wanted to make sure that people took appropriate precautions. And what can you do out there? Well, there's no shelter, but you can get on the ground, cover your head,
and oddly
so
enough, oddly enough, with Americans, you probably have to tell them, don't take video of the bad thing happening. I mean, just that's kind of what we do. We don't go run it. We don't get the emergency people. Yeah, we just we'll film this.
It wasn't just, honestly, it wasn't just Americans. I mean, I think a lot of people. There's but I will tell you, while we were standing there, we heard during the briefing, we heard a couple of good kabooms on the other side, and then you look over and there is smoke coming up. So they're still, listen. I mean, they look over. We were close enough to see Khan Yunis and see where maybe it was Khan Yunis, but see Gaza and see airstrikes, or at least the aftermath of the airstrikes. And so, this is still going on, and everyone knows it's still going on. And it was something that had been mentioned before, but it was worth reiterating. There's one of the women who was on this. It's not just foreigners. I mean, there are Israelis who are maybe retired, who are who are now filling their days doing this sort of thing. And one of them said that she had a son who was a lifer in the IDF. 22 years, and that they had been preparing for exactly this sort of thing, but they thought it would come from the north, from Hezbollah, not from Hamas. So there is still Hezbollah up north that everyone kind of has in the back of their minds has to be dealt with, and so this thing is not over. No matter how much the U.S. administration might want to clap click its heels together and go home. So.
Joshua, is there still support for Netanyahu in Israel?
Not really, but there's no mechanism for doing anything about it.
Yeah.
Right now, if the elections were held right now, his coalition would get crushed, and it would get crushed on the basis of the fact that his selling point was always, whatever else you don't like about me, I can keep the country safe. And right now, his selling point is, look, I'm afterwards there needs to be an accounting, but right now we have a war to win, and people are sort of willing to live with that. But even if they weren't, the only way to call new elections is to have new elections is for the term to expire, which has never happened in the history of Israel, or for there to be a no confidence vote. And right now there's just no incentive for somebody who's in government who knows they're going to lose to call in, to vote for a no confidence measure.
That's interesting. I hadn't thought about the idea of that politics where, the Netanyahu's idea is I'm the wall. I'm the person that is going to keep you safe. And once that has been shattered, then, that brand is hurt and he can't put that back together. Jeez.
No, I mean, FDR, if you want to compare it to, say, Pearl Harbor, FDR never ran. He didn't run in 1940 on I will keep you safe. Now Woodrow Wilson did run on "I keep you out of war," but there was no precipitating attack that compares.
Yeah, and you had
George
Nixon's,
W.
you had
Bush.
Nixon's, I have a plan to end the war that was secret, but I'm not going to tell you. Yeah, so that idea that I'm going to do it, but that's interesting.
Well, that's true, and you would think that would have hurt him in '72, except that they were ending the war. So
yeah,
it took no, they were. I mean, it took a while to get there, but they were in the process of doing that. So I think Netanyahu's brand was that, and people at this point, and listen, I mean, I've always kind of liked him. I've always liked, not kind of, I always liked him. I've always sort of bought into that. But there is some fear that he's putting political survival ahead of maybe what's best for the country. But that, again, that's a longer term issue. Whenever one of these things happens, you build up debt in some ways, right? You have to pay for what happened. There's societal tension that is put to the back because you're dealing with this urgent issue, and then that shows up. So there's always this sort of social and fiscal debt that builds up during a war when you have to win it. But eventually, I mean, it's not like he's going to try and stay in office after the end of his term. Not that any Western leader would ever do anything that.
We're talking with Joshua Sharf of the Independence Institute, live from Jerusalem in Israel. Joshua, earlier this week, families of victims of October 7th and of existing hostages from that attack by Hamas visited the Colorado state capitol. The Senate was proud to honor them on the floor and to stand with them. House Democrats, unable to control and fearful of their own members, decided not to host these family members of victims from the attack on October 7th. Why won't the Jewish leadership in Colorado get rid of the Elizabeth Epps, the Tim Hernandezes? Why? It's not like, I mean, our governor is Jewish. Our attorney general is Jewish. Our secretary of state is Jewish, and they allow this anti-Semitism to fester within their own party. Why won't they just get rid of this?
Well, first of all, to be fair, Elizabeth Epps' mandate to sit in the State House of Representatives doesn't come from any of those people. It comes from the voters of her district.
Yeah.
And they will have a say in the fall. And right now she has, there was a story in, I want to say it was the lobby, but I'm not sure. So I don't want to commit to that. But there was a story that she has shown up for exactly 0 days of work this year. And that she, you might, she was otherwise occupied. No,
that's good.
She has shown up for work, not at all, and she apparently is just not raising any money. So there's an excellent chance that she loses in her primary, despite the unwillingness of higher-ranking Democrats to take a public position on that primary. The wink and the nod, which is this woman is just bad news, has gone out, and I think there's an excellent chance she loses that primary.
Oh,
and
now
we just don't have to worry
Josh,
about her anymore. I mean,
I appreciate that. Oh, Josh, just for a second here, I just want to take, Jeff, you and I, because it looks like Elizabeth F's political career in Colorado might be over. I think we need to have a moment of silence. Okay, that's enough. Okay, I'm sorry. That's all I needed, just a respect thing. All right, sir, now continue. I'm sorry.
But
yeah, exactly.
we'll say this: when Republicans or conservatives have someone that quote unquote goes off the reservation, you're asked about it all the time. I mean, you have to deal with them. You're claimed, you're painted, their party, your team. Why won't you condemn them? Every interview, you got to condemn them. I ran into this with some of our fellows too at the Centennial Institute. Stuff we would never do, had no control over. Our fellows would do and say something, and I would get emails and have to answer for it. And you don't see it at all. The media putting the pressure on Democrat leadership in the state of Colorado to really deal with this anti-Semitism within their party. But Joshua, if people in Colorado want to be supportive of Israel, what's the best way for them to support the work that's going on there right now?
Yeah, so there are a few things that you can do. There's obviously you can sign up if you want to come over and spend some time over here and pick persimmons or something.
Spring break in Israel.
Well, there's yeah, that's actually, you say that, but that would actually be kind of a fun thing to get going.
Yeah.
If I weren't 40 years too old to be doing that. But there's a Swords of Iron volunteer Facebook group that you can join that basically that's a doorway into all sorts of other listings of things. You need to have they live on WhatsApp over here. So it's very confusing as to how am I supposed to coordinate getting from A to B until you realize those aren't phone numbers. Well, they are, but you're not supposed to call people. You're supposed to join that WhatsApp group. And then, so that's what happened with this. So if you want to do that, you can do that. If you want to give money, which I suspect is probably more of more people will be doing that. Friends of the IDF is good. Magen David Adom, which is the equivalent of the Israeli Red Cross, the Israeli Red Jewish Star, Red Magen David. That's good. Jeff, I think you may have heard of Hatzalah, which is essentially it's an ambulance service. It's the ambulance service, that emergency service that does just tremendous work for the entire country. This is, again, all of these are not specific to Israel, but they're not specific to Jews. It's the whole country gets served by this stuff. So those are good. Those are good places to start. JNF, Jewish National Fund, also does a lot of excellent work. Next Wednesday, I'll be going on one of their missions as well. There's also an organization. You kind of have to look it up. I don't have the specific name, but there's an organization that I recommend called the Lone Soldiers Foundation. A lot of people know they come over here and become an Israeli citizen. Well, a lot of people do that when they're young, and they have to serve in the military, and so they serve in the military and they have no other family here because they made Aliyah, but it wasn't like their parents made Aliyah, and so they moved over here, and became Israelis, but it wasn't like their parents or the rest of their family did. So they may come over here and have no family, and so there's an organization devoted to dealing with the needs, the specific emotional needs and physical, practical needs that somebody in that situation might have. So Lone Soldiers Foundation is also something to take a good look at. There are a lot of places where you can help. And of course, write your congressman, write your representative, make sure that they know that we're out here, because I will guarantee you they are hearing from the other side.
This is a civilizational battle in the Middle East. Israel, Western civilization against the radical Islamists, against the radical Marxists that want to take out Western civilization. And it is absolutely critical to continue to defend Israel and to support them. Joshua Sharf, live from Jerusalem. Thanks so much for being on the program, my friend.
Yeah, thank you so much.
It is my pleasure. Thank you, gentlemen. And congratulations and good luck on the new gig.
Oh, thank you. And congratulations on your new skills on orange picking and everything else.
That's right.
You are the best. We'll talk to you soon, Josh.
We'll continue to check in with Joshua from time to time on how things are going in Israel.
Yeah.
Continue, please, to pray for the peace of Jerusalem and Israel and the Middle East.
How
and
cool is it
can work all that out.
Josh shares the conviction of his beliefs, that he's like,
I'm
I believe in this so deeply that I'm going to go and I'm going to put down my life right here, and I'm going to go for a little bit of time. He can't give a long-term commitment, but for a brief amount of time, he can go there and can help the people. It's remarkable.
It's cool.
It's
It's
so
very,
cool.
very cool.
I have so much admiration for him. Nice job. I'm so excited.
Well, we're continuing to monitor oral arguments at the U.S. Supreme Court in Trump v. Anderson as to whether or not Donald Trump can be on the ballot in Colorado, or whether or not he engaged in an insurrection. And Article 14 applies to him, and ergo, he should not be allowed to become the president of the United States. So all of this happening today, we'll continue to track that. Feel free to give us a call and let us know what you think. Should Donald Trump remain on the ballot? Has the left ginned up this? And is the left engaging in election interference by doing all this against Donald Trump? 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971, or text us on the 710 KNUS app. We'll be right back after these messages. You're listening to the Jef and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Good Thursday morning to you, 8:34, February 8th. Jeff Hunt here. Guys, for those of you with a full head of hair, congratulations. Studies show that one of the most attractive physical features is a full head of hair. Want to know the least attractive and most aging? Well, it's hair loss. No amount of car, house, or success can make up for that thinning or balding, as it leaves the greatest lasting physical impression, and it doesn't have to be that way. Advanced Hair has the quick one-day solution for your hair loss. It's the same treatment that's worked for many out there, including some of my family members. No more expensive pills or special shampoos, just your very own natural hair guaranteed to grow. And with Advanced Hair, your new hair can grow for life. Advanced Hair has improved tens of thousands of lives, including top radio personalities across the country. Did I mention your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day? For your free consultation, call 720-459-HAIR. And if you qualify, get $250 and off and 250 free hair grafts. AdvancedHair.com. So, big debate today taking place at the U.S. Supreme Court. Oral arguments over whether or not Donald Trump can remain on the ballot. Lines are filling up. We've got a few open, so give us a call, 303-696-1971, or text in on the 710 KNUS app. Did Donald Trump engage in insurrection, and as a result must be banned, according to a reading of the Constitution, from seeking office again? Stephanie, you're on line one. What's up, Stephanie?
Well, besides, I say no, but that wasn't the reason I was calling. While the president was still speaking, I had heard that there were buses that arrived at the Capitol with folks getting off and putting on red MAGA hats. And then the other one was about the people that, quote unquote, stormed the Capitol. And I even saw the video of this, that the Capitol Police were moving the barriers and waving people in.
I don't think it's as cut and dry as the left tries to make it, right? That this was an organized insurrection effort to overthrow an election, and it was violent, and the people involved with it, including those that were outside engaged in this insurrection. I think there were people there that were gathering peacefully. I think there were people that thought they were walking into something, kind of touring around. You see them
they just
walking
kind of
around.
The crowd, once the people started moving in, they went on ahead also.
Yeah. Now, Stephanie, the thing about the buses, that is not true. If we're talking about people that are not Donald Trump supporters,
Okay.
The whole idea of ghost buses, we've heard Chip Roy talk about it. That is not based in any reality at all. It's just not simply fact, and that's okay. I understand and I appreciate what you're saying about the people wandering around the Capitol, and you're absolutely right. I agree with all of you. It's not an insurrection. I don't think it rises to that. I believe it's a riot. A bunch of people acted the fool. They got out of control, and they should be personally held responsible.
Yes.
Now, let me explain, though, the idea. And every time I hear people say, oh, the police were escorting them around the Capitol, they were peaceful tourists, the police were letting them come in, I want to explain to people why that happens, because I hear people not understanding the context. I'll give you a little bit of background. I'll try to do it quickly. During college, one of our fundraisers was to provide security for CU football and CU basketball. We were instructed on how to behave and what we do when the students rush the field. This was an instruction from law enforcement agencies. They talked about how you behave in that type of a riot situation. And they asked the question, okay, there you are. You guys are lined up. There's 10, 12, 15 of you. They're at the barrier. And here come all the student sections rushing down at you. What do? And what you do is you get the hell out of the way. You move out, because there's nothing you can do against that crowd. And the police officers that day were vastly outnumbered.
Yeah.
The protocol at that point is this, and this is what you were taught to do in CU. You let that happen, and you wander in, and you stay with the people in order to secure their safety. For CU football, we were taught, get onto the field, and what you're supposed to do is watch for them pulling down those goalposts, because the danger is when those posts fall.
Down.
That's it.
Yeah.
They said, do not worry about anything else. Now, people are fighting. Try to break that up and do what you can. But they said the number one priority when you get on the field, Don't worry about the people. Let them come. Worry about the things that can fall and get hurt. And that's what I saw with the police.
There's no option to kneecap people as they walk by?
No, as much I
Is it a
asked.
baton?
I raised a hand. I said, can I have a taser? I mean, there's a cattle prod. I can bring my own. They said no. And they said, I want you, and you sit in the corner. That was it. But that's what the police did. The police allowed the large crowd to come in. And if you watch them escort them around, that specific protocol, because what the police are doing is to make sure they don't act a fool, that they don't walk around as they're going from hallway to hallway. I'm going to reach up here and I'm going to take this picture. I'm going to do this. I'm going to go into this office. I'm going to poop here on the floor, which did happen. So that's why the police were doing it. The escort, they weren't escorting around going over here, over here. It is right.
It wasn't a personal tour with buddies and that type of thing.
Yeah.
But here's where I get a little frustrated, Bill.
Please.
And please, Stephanie, speak into this as well.
Yeah.
I feel like we are combing through January 6th, identifying every single person, right? Like they're taking pictures and they're releasing them to the media, and we're going to find each person involved in this.
Yeah.
Bill, can you tell me, was one person prosecuted for the violence that took place at the state capitol in Colorado?
I don't believe so.
Have you ever seen any images or an effort to identify anybody? That thing sat there for 6 weeks. It took Bill Owens to finally step in and be like, Governor Polis, this is the people's house. Clean this up. Okay. So you kind of have, on one hand, this notion we're gonna pour through the details.
Yeah.
If you took a breath near the Capitol on January 6th, the FBI is going to show up, talk to you. And obviously, if you committed violence, if you engaged in violence, then you absolutely should have been prosecuted for what you did. So you have this one element. But then when actual violence took place here in Colorado, I don't think a single person was prosecuted. Stephanie, what do you think?
Well, and I don't even remember that situation. And I was thinking at the Washington, the Capitol, there was that one woman that was injured.
That was shot? Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And she was crawling through the window and all that stuff. But I get frustrated about the double standard on this, where you can literally destroy cities.
Set them on fire.
And the police
I think that's an exaggeration, personally.
Police get sued for shooting. Yeah, but you don't think that those cities were destroyed as a result of those BLM protests?
Can you still drive through them, or this thing's been rebuilt?
It took a while to rebuild them. I mean, they literally burned down police stations.
I don't really want to do this, but if you want to talk about destroying a city, let's talk about Tulsa in the 20s when it was burnt down. Let's talk about destroying a city. That's destroying a city.
Right.
What BLM did was violent. It was incorrect, and they should be
mostly
prosecuted.
Peaceful. Mostly peaceful.
Well, no, not at all. No.
CNN.
And 15,000 people across the country have been charged in those actions. 15,000 have so far, and that is not enough. And here, on a side note, here's the problem I have with the difference between what went on January 6th and what went on with Black Lives Matter. And this may surprise a couple of you out there. This just might be surprising to you. I don't like either one of them. I think both of them should be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. But there is an excuse that is being made for BLM that is not made for January 6th, and it's not okay. And the Democrats, and again, yes, liberal media are responsible for this. Here's the issue. We saw what happened on January 6th. We saw what happened on Black Lives Matter. During the Black Lives Matter protests, the media and Democrats and liberals decided that their violence equals speech. And they decided on January 6th that in some cases, somebody's speech equates to violence. That is not okay. That is absolutely wrong. And I disagree with the interpretation. And I especially hang that hat on the people that out there and went and made the excuses for Black Lives Matter. Do I understand why? Yes. Do I empathize? Yes. Do I accept it? No, not okay. Same thing with January 6th. I understand and I empathize why people were there. And it is a small fraction of people that got out of hand. And it's a tiny, tiny fraction of those that were there specifically to cause the problems. And Stephanie, I want to go back to and kind of close the circle here with you. You talked earlier about people that went to the Capitol before Donald Trump's speech was over. And you're right. because those groups, though, they weren't coming out of the big buses. Those were the Proud Boys and those were the Oath Keepers, the groups that had been convicted of seditious conspiracy. And the reason they were convicted of seditious conspiracy is because they had a plan. They have meetings. They have Zoom meetings leading up to January 6th. They have meetings the night before. And they left the speech and they went to the Capitol first. And the reason was they wanted to take up strategic positions. So they were in position when things got out of control. They were planning for this.
Were there no anti-Trump people? I mean,
there has been a single. There's been one.
MAGA hats was a made-up story.
Yeah, but completely and totally made up. There's nothing behind that at all. And there's been one person, one individual that actually is attached to Antifa that was there that day, and he proudly announced it and a bunch of other stuff. And I don't know how he made it out alive, but that's a different story. But he was there. Outside of that, to a T, every person that has been charged has said they were a Trump supporter. And again, if you think, well, the deep state is doing X, Y, or Z, then tell me this. How is the deep state going to convince you that you need to stand up and say you support the opposite team and then send you to jail? How long are you willing to spend in jail to make a political point for a larger deep state or a party?
But
I doubt anybody's going to jail for that.
I do think the conservative frustration is it doesn't feel like everything's been transparent with regards to what happened on January 6th. And you've seen it.
That's because a lot of people were telling things that weren't true. Just like with Stephanie and the buses. It wasn't true.
It took forever to get the videos released on that. All right, we're up against a commercial.
Thank you, Stephanie. You're the best. Thanks for calling back.
Ron,
I appreciate it.
Please stick around. We've got to get to a commercial break here. We'll get to you right next. Stephanie's line is open, 303-696-1971, 303-696-1971. Here's a question for the audience and for the text messages here on the 710 KNUS app. Are you confident you understand and know everything that took place on January 6th?
That's interesting. That's interesting.
Do you have confidence? Do you have confidence that you know that? Do you believe that the government's been fully honest with you?
That's
and
interesting.
That you know those details.
That's an interesting idea. The idea of, do you feel like you know all the details? Do you feel like people have been honest with you? Where you're getting your information from? And I also want to circle back to a conversation that we had earlier based on a great question or great premise that Ralph had. Again, not sure I agree with him, but it's an interesting premise. His idea is that perhaps you could declare Donald Trump ineligible for the ballot if he goes ahead and pardons those convicted of seditious conspiracy. If it rises to that level, not talking about pardoning anybody else, we can just lump that in. But if the people that are convicted of seditious conspiracy, does that then qualify as him giving aid and or comfort to an enemy?
It's got to be more than just campaign talk. It's got to be the action itself, and then we can debate that.
Yeah,
all right, let me do a read here for my good friend Dan Kaplis, who I adore. Absolutely. Dan is believed to be the only lawyer in Colorado history to win 5 straight multi-million-dollar jury verdicts in motor vehicle crash cases. Dan and his partner, Babar Wahid, won the largest truck crash jury verdict in Colorado history. The firm's history of 7- and 8-figure settlements and verdicts speaks for itself. They are a firm where good people from all walks of life, without regard to ability to pay, receive the level of legal representation that the rich and powerful enjoy. Dan Kaplis Law believes that talk is cheap, experience counts, results matter. The firm would be happy to share with you its track record of outstanding jury verdicts and an out-of-court settlements. Dan Kaplis believes that who you hire says a lot about you to everyone involved in the case. You walk in with Dan on your side, it's like showing up with Arnold Schwarzenegger on your side. You guys are going to war, and he's going to defend you. That's why I like Dan so much. He'd be the first one I call if I got in trouble. They suggest that you choose a law firm that shares your values. The firm believes that its core values have been the foundation of its historic success: faith, integrity, hard work, and a dedication to righteous causes. If you need Dan's help, give him a call at 303-770-5551 or hit dankaplislaw.com. That's Dan, C-A-P-L-I-S law.com. We've got an open line or two, so give us a call, 303-696-1971. Donald Trump, before his case before the U.S. Supreme Court, not him himself, but the case before the U.S. Supreme Court as to whether or not he engaged in insurrection and therefore should be kept off the ballot in places like Colorado and Maine. This has huge ramifications for the 2024 presidential election and for the future of this country moving forward. So stick around. You're listening to the Jef and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS. Works better when I turn the mic on. Okay, we'll be right back.
All right, Jef and Bill show. Important day today. We're talking the Supreme Court case as whether or not Donald Trump can remain on the ballot in the state of Colorado. Oral arguments taking place as we speak. Ron, line 2. What do you think?
Well, pretty sure he's going to stay on. I mean, because if he's not, we're going to have a lot of problems, right?
Yeah, I mean, what happens? What do you think happens to Republicans in Colorado if our vote, because he's going to be on the ballot. The ballots have been printed, but our vote for him won't count. Like, where do you think that goes?
It won't count if the Supreme Court rules that he should not be on the ballot, correct?
That's correct. Yeah. So there's a few things.
So I don't think. Yeah, I really don't think that's going to happen. I mean, to entertain it would be silly. But for this, if you're wanting an answer, we're pretty much already at financial civil war. Wouldn't you agree?
What do you mean by financial civil war?
People picking sides strictly based off of their political beliefs.
Yeah, I think
as far as where to spend money, where not to spend money, who to boycott, who not to boycott. That's been going on for years.
Yeah.
Like, 4 years maybe. And I mean, look at what's going on with all these different states going down to Texas. I mean, we need to see what's, the Rock says, can you smell what the Rock is cooking?
I love that. Thank you.
Can you see? Can you see what's cooking? Something is cooking. And we need to wake up as America. I've heard too many people say, which was true, when 9/11 happened, we were so tight. Yep. We were one.
Yep.
Where has that gone? Why has it not been back? Who is truly dividing us?
Ron,
you always hear about
that's tough. Now, Ron, I appreciate the phone call. We've got the music has just started. You got to call back and join us again, because that is not fair for you to open up the conversation and say, where has our unity gone? And then we have to break for the hour.
Let's have Ron stick around if you can. We'll go to news.
Have hold, man.
We'll go to news. If you don't mind, stick around. We'll come back to you. Ron making the argument that the Supreme Court case is kind of an example of a larger divide taking place. But we'll get to him and more. You're listening to the Jef and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
And that music will get you fired up. 9 a.m. in the Mile High City, Thursday, February 8th. Good morning to you, Billy boy.
Hey, good morning, Jeff. How you doing today?
Man, we are tracking all the breaking news that's happening. Yep. Oral arguments taking place at the U.S. Supreme Court as to whether or not Donald Trump can remain on the ballot in the state of Colorado. Fox News covering it right now. Oral arguments going there. Tomorrow, we're going to have Chris Murray from Brownstein, Hyatt, Farber, and Schreck. Brilliant attorney. He'll be downloading and giving us all the details on what this is going to mean for those of us that tend to want to support Donald Trump in Colorado. Is our vote going to matter? We're also going to have Justin Folk, the director of the film What is a Woman, who produced one of the top Super Bowl commercials of all time. He'll be joining us tomorrow as well as we get ready for Super Bowl weekend.
What is it? What do you have to do in order to produce a Super Bowl commercial? How do you come up with that idea? The execution. You realize you are going on to not just a national, but an international stage. You stepped out there with your commercial, your pants fall down. What do you do? He executed a brilliant one.
He did.
But he had to walk that tightrope.
They didn't just hand him a Super Bowl commercial. He had to compete in the Doritos one with the flying kid. That was his son. He was the producer of it. So all of that's coming up tomorrow. Let's get to the news with Mr. Blake Olson.
All right, guys. Thanks, Jeff. Appreciate it. 40 and mostly cloudy in Denver, expecting highs in the low 50s today. The 7-10 5-day forecast is coming up. Our top story, the U.S. Supreme Court is now hearing arguments in a landmark case on whether former President Trump can run for president again. The high case revolves around the Colorado Supreme Court ruling that disqualified Trump from the state's ballot. The case in front of the Supreme Court is based on the 14th Amendment, which centered on former Confederate officers. Section 3 of the amendment says anyone who previously took an oath to support the Constitution and then engaged in insurrection or rebellion is no longer qualified to serve again. But Trump's attorney, Jonathan Mitchell, says it doesn't apply to a president.
Even if the candidate is an admitted insurrectionist, Section 3 still allows the candidate to run for office and even win election to office.
The 5 Marines missing after a helicopter crash have been found dead. The Marines were headed to San Diego Tuesday on a training flight from Creech Air Force Base near Las Vegas. Federal prosecutors say a confidential informant made secret recordings of Senator Bob Menendez, who is facing federal bribery charges. In a new court filing, prosecutors wrote that the recording discusses the bribery scheme and suggests the New Jersey Democrat had been swindled by one of his co-defendants. Tucker Carlson's exclusive interview with Vladimir Putin in Russia can be seen tonight at 4:00 Denver time on X.
The interview will be released on Carlson's website and X profile at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. It will mark the first interview that Putin has given to a Western journalist since the invasion of Ukraine almost 2 years ago. Carlson says he has a duty to tell the truth about what's happening in the war between Russia and Ukraine. He also claimed Western news outlets are pushing propaganda, and Americans have the right to know what's actually going on. I'm Mark Mayfield.
And Henry Fambro of the Spinners has died at the age of 85. He was the last member of the group to pass away. The Nuggets go for 3 straight wins tonight in LA against the Lakers at 8:00. They unveil the Kobe Bryant statue today, and the Avalanche at Carolina tonight at 5:00. Guys, you have a great day. 31 in Greenwood Village, 30 in Thornton, and 34 in Denver. Jeff and Billy continue. Blake Olson, News Talk 710 KNUS.
Hey guys, eliminate the stress and uncertainty of selling your home while still getting top dollar with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home Team with Keller Williams Sell. Their Sell with Certainty program guarantees your home will sell without even having to list it, and at the same time getting you top dollar. Gay Ribble and the Empower Home Team guarantees the sale, ensuring a seamless process and eliminating the stress while getting you the best price. Get paid twice with their Sell with Certainty program. Give Gay Ribble and Empower Home Team a call today at 833-301-SOLD. That's 833-301-SOLD. All right, Ron, you've been sticking around. Let's pull Ron back on. We've got open lines. Go to 303-696-1971. We're talking about the court case before the U.S. Supreme Court today. Oral arguments taking place as to whether or not Donald Trump, according to Article 14, can remain on the ballot, or Amendment 14. I apologize for that. Can remain on the ballot. Ron, you were talking about how this indicates a larger division that's taking place within our country.
Right. I mean, if you look at what happened, I mean, I'm looking right now at a clip of two tweets that Trump set out that were immediately pulled down. One was at 2:38, one was at 3:13. The riot started like at 4 something, and he's at 4:08, and he's saying, let's stay peaceful. And they were pulled down. Why? Because there is a bigger agenda. Why was the National Guard not sent in? There's talk that Trump never asked Pelosi, but then yet you have that police chief who was, I don't know if he quit or what, but he himself says, hey, they requested National Guard and it was denied. So everybody's trying to make sure everybody's protected, but there was a bigger agenda there. Not
now,
to mention
Ron,
the fact
walk me through the idea about the National Guard being requested. Explain that one to me, because so far we've seen there's no paperwork, there's no actual request or anything else from Trump prior to. Nancy Pelosi is not at the head of the National Guard. She could not take control of them nor order them to do anything. The discussion that I saw about whether or not they were coming in had to do with after. That was post everything getting out of hand. Do you have anything different than that?
Well, you're right as far as with Trump and that there's no proof. But as far as with this former chief, I mean, he says that he asked security officials at the House and Senate. They both rebuffed his request for National Guard.
Yeah, and I would agree. And I would agree if it's the police chief, and we do have information prior to that there was some chatter. They had actually tapped into some of the conversations with Oath Keepers and Proud Boys. So there were branches inside of intelligence that were worried about actors coming in that were looking to make something happen.
Right. And so when you have that, I'm just kind of curious as to why, you don't have that protection. Why wouldn't you?
Ron, I think
that's the big question.
I think this goes back to we don't fully understand everything that took place on January 6th. I think I'm relatively an informed guy, but if you really pin me down to understand what happened there, who requested what, who knew when, how far ahead, because this thing became so politicized, right? They had the special counsel investigations, the little group that Nancy Pelosi formed to look into all this that was so partisan. Because of all that, I think most people in my position where you've got jobs to work, you've got kids to get places, you don't really know what happened. So that begs the question, if we don't really understand what happened, we don't know who knew when, we don't know why Donald Trump's tweets were taken down, we don't really know who acted and didn't act and why some people were charged and other people weren't charged and why Ray Epps wasn't charged, all that stuff.
We do know that.
Why would we then convict and believe that Donald Trump engaged in an insurrection and try to keep him off the ballot? We're right back into just partisan hackery in the midst of all this stuff. Do we really, if we really believed that Donald Trump orchestrated an insurrection to take down the United States of America and a duly elected president, then I think most people in America would go, yeah, he shouldn't be the president again. But This thing is so mired in partisanship, and some people hiding certain things and other people hiding certain things, that I don't think that this case should be brought before the Supreme Court. And I don't think it's right for Jenna Griswold and a handful of quote unquote Republicans to try to keep people from being able to vote for Donald Trump in this election. I just don't think it's right.
That's pretty suspicious in itself, isn't it? When a Republican is bringing this,
right.
Which, it's like, who was it that said that? That kind of proves that we have a one system politics. There's no really Democrat and Republican.
The Uniparty.
When push comes to shove.
Okay, hold on. Hold on. I got to jump in here just for a sec. Explain that to me. How are you coming to the conclusion, Ron? Help me understand why, if it is a Republican that is making an accusation or filing a charge against a Republican, how come that shows that the fix is in rather than a Democrat charging a Republican or Republican charging Democrat? That's the argument right now, that it is Biden's DOJ charging Trump. And so obviously it's a foul. I disagree. But tell me how, when it's Republican on Republican, that you get to the point that it's foul.
Well, it's both. You've got the Democrats coming after him, and you always have had those Republicans that didn't like him. You saw that in Colorado when Trump became president and he came out here, and our party didn't show up to greet him at the airport. And I'm thinking, I thought we were supposed to be united on that side.
That's fair, Ron. That's a good point. Now let's explore that just for a second, though, is that it seems to me like what you were saying there is, if the Democrats accuse Trump of something or go after him, then the fix is in. And if Republicans accuse Trump and go after him for something, then the fix is in. So basically, what I'm hearing is, if they go after Trump, it's obviously corrupt. Is that your premise?
The corruption is so deep that it's kind of like you know as to how it is with celebrities, and when they're trying to rat somebody out and they say, just say they're crazy. That's all we got to do, is we got to show that they're crazy, prove them crazy. And that's kind of what's going on right here. It's like, wait a minute, I'm not understanding how you're saying that the Democrats are this, the Republicans are this. That's not making any sense. Well, in reality, isn't it diabolical? Because actually it does make sense. These guys this isn't their first rodeo, right? They've been doing this. They got caught on the first round. They were shocked that Trump won, but they're like, oh, hell no, not this round. This round, we're going to be so ready. And the thing of it is, you've got all the blacks, you got a ton of the Latinos that are saying, wait a minute, you duped us. We're now for Trump. And they're super scared. That's why they're throwing everything at him nonstop.
So, Ron, are you going to vote in the 2024 election? Are you going to vote?
I'm voting for Trump.
I know. I'm just asking if. So why? Why would you? I don't care who you're voting for. I want to know why you would exercise your individual right to vote if the fix is in. If the deep state did everything they could and they kept him away from the Oval Office, as I'm hearing, you think that the 2020 election was fixed. If it was fixed and the deep state did that, why can he ever get into power right now? It doesn't matter how many people, according to the premise of the fixed election, it doesn't matter how much support Donald Trump gets from the black community, the Hispanic community, or the conservative community, the women community. It doesn't matter, because the fix is in. So are you going to vote?
Well, yeah, but I don't think that the fix is, I don't think that the fix that they're working on is capable. I think it's going to be an overload. I think it's going to be so many people that they're not going to be able to sway it, because they're going to say, well,
hang on a second. Hold on, Ron. Let's pause. I hear this a lot. The idea that we are going to overwhelm the algorithm. Blah, 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 blah. Now, I want to know if these people, the nefarious deep state, control the machines and the algorithm, how do you possibly think you ever could overwhelm it? Because anytime any of the ballots come in that are for Donald Trump, they're just going to do whatever nefarious thing you want. I mean, we've already come to the conclusion in this conversation that the deep state is manipulating these elections. I disagree with the idea that somehow the free people are going to be able to overwhelm the algorithm of the people that are holding control of the machines. That's illogical. It simply does not work. And what I hear this being an excuse. Personally, I'm accusing it, but I'm hearing this. Yeah, but it's an excuse, Ron, of saying I think the election in 2020 was stolen, but I don't believe it enough so I'm still going to vote in 2024. If you thought the election was stolen, you don't vote again. You just don't, because it's stolen.
I agree with you as far as the logic of not really being there, as far as, they're going to be able to still do this, and, because they control it. I'm not knowledgeable enough to argue strongly on that. However, I am able to argue that once in 2020, once they were able to, and this obviously took, a year after, 2 years after, they were able to start tracing how the computers went down, where it went down. They said there's fingerprints, basically, if you will, and you can trace where these go, how things happen.
Yep, you can.
I would think,
and so far there's no fraud, and there's no fraud. They've gone through that. They've gone through forensic analysis of voting machines that was done in Arizona, not the cyber ninjas. Actual certified forensic analysis came in, 2 different companies that are certified, and looked at the machines. The machines are straight. Yeah, they've traced these, but that's because that's how the machines have been built. And what they've found in over 250 audits is no fraud. Not a single.
And where did you get that information from?
250 audits? They've got 200 across the country.
Did the audits?
Yes, they audited the vote process, and they do it after every election.
Who's they, though? Who is they?
The people that run the elections, and they have to, and they can produce them. They
Right.
produce the audits. Okay, so the issue is that, so your thing is, again, the people that run the audits are in on the fix, so then it's fixed. So then we're back to square one. Why do you vote? If you think that it doesn't matter who's auditing, if it's fixed, why are you still voting? I don't think you really believe in your core that it's fixed. Because if you really believed that the fix was in, you wouldn't bother voting, because your vote doesn't matter. I think that you have a little bit of cognitive dissonance. There's a little bit of cognitive dissonance in there that you want to believe that it's stolen, but it actually isn't in your mind, and you know that it's your core, and so you're going to show up in November of this year, and you're going to cast your vote because you know it's going to be counted. You can be angry about the 2020, but you got nothing there.
I like what you're saying, because it definitely does carry a lot of validity. However, there is still, whenever there's that thing that makes you go, that's the problem. That's the problem. And you're right. We can't always put our finger on it. And that doesn't mean don't do it. But what you're saying definitely has a lot of validity to it. However, there is still that thing that's like, something smells. Something everywhere smells.
Yeah, I can see that. I get that, man. Now I want to take you in a different direction just for a sec, because we held you over because you had a really, really interesting conversation with us coming into there, and I appreciate that honest conversation there more than you know. And I hope you continue to call in, Ron. I appreciate it. And 303-696-1971 if you want to tell me why I'm wrong. Would love to hear that with Jef and Bill here on CanUS. And what I want to ask you is return to the conversation about post-September 11th and how we are so unified and how we are not unified as a country now. How do you think we got there? What do you think is happening there? And more importantly, how do we repair it? How do we get back together? What are your thoughts?
Well, there's no definitive answer. You can only guess, right?
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
My guess is that I call them the entitlement brats, grew up and they became stronger. They're now in positions all around our country, in positions of business, and they're making calls and they're doing stuff that everybody's like, what the heck? I was like, well, that's the boss. The boss is calling it. And when you look at their history, like I said, I can only guess, that is one of the big things causing these problems. It goes everywhere. I don't want to stray as far as with this, when you are a child and you're able to get castrated, that's happening. How come that's happening now and it wasn't happening years ago? I'm telling you, it's because who is becoming in power, and it is super scary. It's not across the board, thank God, but there are a lot of people out there. And when you have an attorney taking our president to court who has had an affair with the guy that she put in power, that's something that makes you go, wait a minute, what?
Yeah. Yeah, that is, and I think you're right that Fannie Willis is harming herself. The issue I've got with the Fannie Willis case is you have to show me that because she's having a relationship, and it is a dumb relationship, with the prosecutor that she's appointed, that somehow then the nefarious fix is in for Trump. But we'll leave that to the side. I like the idea of the people in power.
Hold on.
Yeah. No, it's not. That's not discussion today. It doesn't matter.
Hold on. Just because they're in a relationship, doesn't mean that there's necessarily. Your argument is that just because they're in a relationship doesn't mean that she's necessarily
it doesn't mean
doing anything wrong, right?
And it doesn't mean the fix is in. It doesn't mean, because the issue is people want to say they want to disqualify her.
Thomas.
No, hang on a sec.
Clarence Thomas.
What? No, tell me, because that is different.
Wasn't that your argument earlier?
That is not a correct analogy, and here's the reason why. Ginny Thomas was not put on the Supreme Court payroll. Ginny Thomas was not put in front of the Supreme Court or meant as an advocate. She was working with outside groups. Now, if Fannie Willis was having a relationship with a person that was leading anti-Trump groups, that was involved in getting Trump off the ballot, even if he is involved, if her significant other was involved in something like this 14th Amendment, now we have got a coloration. Now we've got a bent as far as it being incorrect. The fact that she hires her boyfriend, she hired her boyfriend. I'm sorry, didn't Trump put Kushner and Ivanka inside the White House? He hired his relations as well, people that he's friendly with. That's what happened. Yeah, she made a dumb decision.
Just because they're in a relationship doesn't mean that something nefarious went on. That was your argument.
Yeah,
that was your point.
And I asked, would it? I didn't say it did. I'm asking, would it? And if this lawyer that Fannie Willis is involved in was involved in actions like Ginny Thomas, how would you feel? So far, the lawyer isn't. The lawyer's in her office being paid by her. We can talk about the ethics issues. It's different, though. It's not the same thing.
Yeah, but we don't have a recorder in their bedroom, bedroom talk. And I'm sure that there is definitely talk about strategy. There's talk about, didn't she go to the White House quite a bit as well? So you've got once again, you got all this stuff that
Ron,
makes
hang on
you
a sec,
go,
but I understand that. Yes, the lead prosecutor and the DA should talk about the case. Whether or not they're naked at the time, that'll leave to personal decision. And we can talk about someone, George Brockler, if he makes a DA in 23rd district, he can decide whether or not we're going to do naked meetings. So, I think that's different.
Well, yeah, but you're not necessarily comparing business talk with let's get him talk. But there's strategy there. They're not trying to stay on the side of the law. They're trying to stay on the side of it's justice for me, not thee.
Show that to me. Show that the discussion between how we're going to prosecute Donald Trump all of a sudden becomes this nefarious actor, even though they are in a relationship. If they were married and they were on the prosecution team, would that mean that the prosecution is invalid? If let's say that we had someone on the STEM shooting here in town, if George Brockler and his significant other or someone else on the prosecution team were married, would the defense then be able to say, sorry, judge, those two were sleeping together. This case needs to be dismissed? Would you really think that is a legal argument that holds any water at all?
I don't think that's going to be the same comparison. And now
if it was going
to be, but if it was, if it's going to be something with George and his wife doing something against a political person that has some very suspicious charges that nobody else is being charged like this. I mean, didn't somebody find a ton of documents by somebody's car in a garage that wasn't president?
Not at all. Ron, that's incorrect. Ron, that's inaccurate. They found less than 30 documents, and that report's going to be released in the next 24 hours. But the issue is, hang on a sec, Ron. 30 is better than 300. But the issue is the illegal retention. We're not dealing with that right now. You talked about nobody else is being charged. Fannie Willis charged 14 people. In the same case with Donald Trump, she charged 14 people. 3 have taken pleas.
Great.
Yeah, but no. Your
How
premise.
Many were charged on Biden?
Your premise was your premise, Ron. I'm coming back to your premise. You're obfuscating. Your premise was she's doing this to only Trump, and she's doing it because she's a meanie. She indicted 14 people.
Yeah, right.
Not
to
only
indict
Trump.
14 people.
But his was singular.
This is RICO, brother. This has nothing to do with the other 13 people other than to try to get them to flip and testify against Donald Trump.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey,
Ron, thank you so much.
Ron, I
call
appreciate
again, man.
Right on,
that
guys.
was really good, man. I really
Really.
appreciate you, man. You're fantastic.
That was a
Appreciate
fun conversation. Hey, before we go to a commercial break, if you're sick and tired of achy joints, dread the idea of surgery, you need to call QC Kinetics today. had a great conversation with them the other day. Hey, guys, it's Jeff Hunt. Listen, the state of healthcare is always changing. The old ideas like steroids and surgery are no longer your only options. Regenerative medicine at QC Kinetics is transforming lives with innovative, non-surgical, drug-free treatments that deliver lasting results. Knee pain, back pain, shoulder pain from arthritis or injury. Don't let this pain keep you from living your best life. QC Kinetics advanced state-of-the-art treatments harness your direct your body's natural ability to restore and repair damaged joint tissue. This is a revolutionary approach that can get you long-term relief with no downtime. Make 2024 the year you reclaim your mobility, reclaim your independence, walk and run and play and live without the danger and trauma of surgery and without harmful drugs. Call QC Kinetics now for a free consultation, 303-900-8986. That's 303-900-8986. You know, a lot of my friends who are facing those health challenges, you got to keep moving. You got to keep moving. It's movement that matters, especially as you get older in life. So call QC Kinetics today. We've got Rusty on the line, and we do have an open line. So give us a call, 303-696-1971. If you want to continue the conversation or text us on the 710 KNUS app, you're listening to the Jeff and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
We are back at it. Rusty, we'll get to you in just a second. We have open lines 303-696-1971. We're talking the Supreme Court case, Trump v. Anderson, as to whether or not Donald Trump can remain on the ballot in the state of Colorado. But before we get to that, I want to talk to you about Mitch Floria, who I had a chance to meet the other day. Mitch is amazing. When it comes to creating the perfect kitchen or bathroom countertop, it's all about understanding the client's needs and personal style. That's why communication is key. Mitch Floria is the master craftsman with the art of granite and works with his team of highly skilled craftsmen, each with their own unique expertise to bring your vision to life. From single residential installations to large-scale projects, Mitch and his team at the Art of Granite will listen to you and get you what you need. Mitch provides granite, marble, quartz, and other materials from his own warehouse in Denver West. I toured it around. It's like this maze of beautiful marble, granite, and quartz. I mean, so many selections, all at wholesale prices with no markup, so you can get the most for your budget. Mention KNUS and get this, you'll receive a bathroom countertop free with the purchase of your fantastic new kitchen countertops, or get a kitchen or bathroom sink free with the purchase of any countertop package. Guys, this is an incredible gift you can give your wife for Valentine's Day. Schedule a consultation with Mitch and visit his beautiful showroom in Denver West, or call Mitch at 303-386-5919, or you can visit his website, theartofgranite.com, to start dreaming about your new countertops. That's theartofgranite.com. Hey, guys, as those of us that watch where we spend our money to make sure we're investing in good companies, this guy has framed constitutions and declarations of independence on his wall. Giant American flag, big bald eagle. This guy from Romania, born into communism, loves this country and loves the freedoms that we enjoy. So definitely a good use of your funds to spend with him. All right, Rusty, line one. What are your thoughts on this case at the Supreme Court today?
Well, first of all, I want to correct the record on that previous call. Am I here? Am I on the air?
You are on the air.
Yeah, we got you, Rusty.
Okay, sorry, I didn't hear the little chime, which you normally hear.
I did that to you earlier, Rusty. I had you waiting in the queue, so you didn't have to worry with that, man.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry
Well,
about that.
Welcome to KNUS, you guys.
Thank you.
But anyway, the previous caller, that was one of the longest calls I've ever had anybody, be able to make on radio, and I don't know if it's good or bad. It was a pretty.
Yeah, that doesn't sound like a compliment.
That's because Bill. That's because Billy likes to toy.
I'm sorry. I'm not tangential.
But it's okay.
I'm not linear. Yeah,
you guys are new. You got to get your, whatever.
Yeah,
but anyway,
I
do want to correct the record on one very important premise that he made. He said that Jenna Griswold was a Republican, and she's not a Republican. She's a dyed-in-the-wool Democrat.
Yeah, no, I didn't hear that. He must have
yeah.
misspoke, because no, she's about as lib as it gets.
I think that what he was doing is he's talking about the other Republicans that are involved in the lawsuit. I think,
okay.
if I had to guess, I'm just guessing.
He said, I was pretty sure.
I'm certain. Yeah, I'm absolutely certain that you're right about him. I'm thinking that what he meant, though, was some of those other Republicans. I'm just giving him the deference, saying maybe that's the issue, but you're absolutely right about the statement. Yeah.
Yeah, and his bigger issue really was one that you touched on, you brought up at the end of the first segment of this call, and that's that. What is really going on here? And I have thought really that all this stuff about Marxism and all that is just a little bit out there. But as I study and read more and more, I don't know if the people call themselves Marxist. But what a lot of people and groups are doing independently of each other will have the same result as that Marxist tenet of, first of all, tearing something down and dividing the people. And that's what's happening, whether they are one organized Marxist group or not. I do believe that's what's happening, and that's going to be the impact of what's happening. I think and I'm so sad because I don't think there's any way Donald Trump could win this election. Whether he's the best candidate, would be the best president or whatnot, I just don't think he can win it because he shot himself in the foot so many times by being such a jerk. But I don't know. I just don't think he can win it. Obviously, I would have supported someone else in the primary, but I would support him in the general, but I still don't think he can win the election.
Who do you think is really turned off by his personality? Which demographic of voters is most impacted by that?
largely women, probably, because, you know, they're hypersensitive. You know what I'm saying? But no, I do think largely women, and the suburban women, quote unquote, soccer moms, whatever you want to call them, primarily. And, you know, he just creates such animosity from everybody. The Democrats are going to just try extra hard and do whatever they can to see that he's beaten. And I do think all of these things have a political motivation. All these lawsuits, they wouldn't have happened if it wasn't Donald Trump.
Why do you think they're so motivated to try to stop him? In a way that maybe I remember kind of Bush derangement syndrome. I remember that in like 2004, and just like people would go crazy. And remember Kanye West saying, you know, George W. Bush doesn't like black people with the Hurricane Katrina stuff. And so you kind of had that Bush derangement syndrome, but this is a whole different level. Why do you think it's at a whole different level?
I think there are a lot of people, and you know, again, the Marxism and the deep state and all of that, those are sort of buzzwords, and I think they turn a lot of people off. But there are a lot of people that are embedded in government and have been in government for a long time who think that their jobs and careers will be in jeopardy if someone like Trump, who's going to really shake things up, gets in there. And so they're doing everything they can to keep him from getting elected, including supporting all these lawsuits. And I mean, the two-tiered justice system, it's so obvious as far as some of those issues. And so I think it's largely that. And then, you know, the Democrats are much more organized and much more united than the Republicans have ever been. They would get behind Genghis Khan if they thought, you know, he was the same person, the right person, and they would all vote for him. And it's just, largely it's the people that some people call the deep state. But I would just say it's a big crowd of people who would stand to have their careers, etc., placed in jeopardy if Donald
Rusty,
Trump got into office.
Now, Rusty, one of the things that I'm hearing from both you and Jeff is this, and I will say a presupposition that these lawsuits and charges against Trump are there simply because of politics. Could it be possible that Donald Trump committed some crimes? Is that possible?
Well, it is possible, some of them. But I don't think any of the cases would have been brought up had it not been Donald Trump and had it not been Donald Trump running for president.
Okay,
so
now Rusty, let's stop there just for a second. Let's focus on the Mar-a-Lago case, the illegal retention of documents. During the time between which Donald Trump has been indicted for the illegal documents, the search of Mar-a-Lago, between that time and now, we have had not one but two different service members charged with the same thing, and not illegal retention, but actually having the classified materials. It had nothing to do with retention. It's like, that's the government property. You have it. You're going to go to prison. Okay, so that was the premise, and
Bill,
that's what's happened twice since then to service members.
You don't think there's any difference between service members and the president of the United States when it comes to classified documents?
Just point of clarification: Donald Trump, at the time he had the documents, wasn't president. That's irrelevant.
They were his documents.
No,
it's not like he walked into a military base and stole documents.
Did you really just say they were his documents? They were his personal property?
Didn't say they were his personal property, but they were documents from his presidency.
Yeah, that is work product of the U.S. government. That belongs to the government. You don't get to take that home.
No, okay.
It's not a souvenir. You don't get to bring it home.
You're bringing up. You're bringing up some serious specifics, and honestly, I'm not an attorney. I haven't studied many of these things in as much depth to be able to answer with a lot of legal authority, with any legal authority, really. But I'm curious if you can shed light on what you think is the difference between Biden's documents that he had in his garage and Trump's documents that he had, I think, probably better security.
Here's the difference, Rusty. Here's the difference. And this is the landmine that many people, and I have to say, many people on both sides of the media have not accurately portrayed this. This Mar-a-Lago case is a very, very dangerous landmine for Donald Trump, and it has to do with the intelligence of Jack Smith. Now, I know everybody's going, oh, he's an idiot. No. Listen to me very, very closely. This was
he's not an idiot.
Hey, this is the intelligence of Jack Smith. He charged Donald Trump for illegal retention, not for having the documents. The cases I cited earlier are for having documents and possessing them. Joe Biden had documents and possessed them. Mike Pence had documents and possessed them. The investigation into Joe Biden is going to be released in 24 to 48 hours from what we understand, because it's just been concluded and been delivered to Merrick Garland. Merrick Garland is going to go through it and he's going to release it. The difference is when the government came to Donald Trump and said, we need those back, Donald Trump said, nope, they're mine. And then he hid them. And then he hid them from his lawyers and had his lawyers present fake affidavits saying that he had returned them. That's something that neither Pence nor Biden nor Obama or anybody else that you can talk about did. That is a differentiating act. And that is what he is charged with. What do you think about that?
I think if everything you said is true, I think he's in serious legal jeopardy for that.
Yeah, that's the problem. Now, here's the thing, Rusty. Now, let's take the next step real quickly. How does how does that impact the election? If he's convicted of that, illegal retention of documents.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I just cannot get behind Trump at this stage, because I don't think he can win. He's going to have all these not lawsuits, but criminal prosecutions against him. He may be convicted. I don't know what he's going to stand on. I think he's going to say that, well, once I'm elected, I'm going to be able to pardon myself for all of this stuff.
Yeah, that's it.
And
that's
I think
Bill, what is
if he says that, well, let me just finish this up.
Yeah, please.
I think if he says that, that's going to turn on, supposedly he's got between a 4 and 8% advantage to Biden in the polls. And that doesn't matter because it's state by state, of course. But that 4 to 8% will disappear pretty quickly if he is convicted of several crimes, whether or not those convictions are just. I mean, that's a whole other thing.
Yeah.
Anything that is brought in New York or DC, he doesn't stand a chance.
That's a good point, man. Rusty, hey, I thank you, man. And again, we took you long, too. We appreciate the conversations. That's what Jeff and I want to do. We want to sit here and let you have this have this conversation. And too often in talk radio, we don't do this.
Rusty, I appreciate it. Thanks so
man.
much.
You're the best. Have a great day.
Thank you.
My question to you, Billy, since you seem to know the case pretty well, what's Trump's arguments for maintaining those documents?
They're mine. And that's the problem. He doesn't have one. That's why this is so dangerous.
So it's a presidential
here's the
office.
Here's the thing.
Right?
It can't be a presidential argument office, because as soon as you are no longer the president, you're not covered by that umbrella. So as soon as Joe Biden is inaugurated, all of those presidential powers evaporate and are no longer transferred to Donald Trump. He doesn't have those. And the idea that Donald Trump may or may not have declassified the documents is absolutely irrelevant in this case, because Jack Smith is not charging him with possessing classified documents. He's charging him with illegal retention. He's not saying, hey, you shouldn't have had the classified stuff. He said, hey, when we ask for them back, you have to give them back. They don't belong to you. It is government property. And that's why he's in danger. That's the problem.
I think he's challenging that. So we'll get to Gary when we get back. But before we do, if you're losing your hair or you need a simple solution that works, you want the best modern technology with top-rated physicians, something that's guaranteed to work. Guys, you need Dr. Tanya Pauls and her team at Advanced Hair. They've completely redefined hair restoration, from the experience itself to the unmatched results. Receding hairline, bald spots, or thinning hair, address them all with Advanced Hair's simple one-day treatment in a calm, relaxed environment with the most experienced professionals. Advanced Hair has performed tens of thousands of these breakthrough treatments. And get this, your own natural hair begins to regrow the very next day. No one in Denver can offer anything like the Advanced FUE found at Advanced Hair, and I highly recommend their team. It starts with your free consultation. Call 720-459-HAIR. If you qualify, you'll also get $250 off and 250 free hair grafts. Refine your hairline with a team that's redefined hair restoration. 720-459-HAIR or advancedhair.com. That's advancedhair.com. Gary, we'll be right back to you. We're up against a commercial break. You're listening to the Jef and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.
Welcome back to the Jef and Bill show. Before we jump to the lines, I want to just tell you about Gay Ribble. I met Gay at the studio here recently. Absolutely delightful woman. Your home is a significant asset, and choosing the right team to help you sell it can be the real difference in thousands of dollars in your pocket. I highly recommend Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team, the realtors I trust. Empower Home Team provides exceptional service, invaluable advice, and employs unique systems to maximize the money you can get for your home. Getting an offer above your home's asking price is great, but you're leaving money on the table by not working with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home Team. Gay and her experts get their clients an average of $30,000 more. Could you use an extra $30,000? That's precisely why you need Gay Ribble and Empower Home Team. Their exclusive database is filled with pre-screened buyers ready to make a purchase. Take the stress and hassle out of selling your home while getting the best price. Here's an unbeatable offer. Gay Ribble and Empower Home Team will sell your house for 100% of the asking price, or Gay will pay you the difference. It's an offer you simply cannot refuse. Get 100% of your asking price guaranteed with Gay Ribble and the Empower Home Team. Reach out to my friends and realtors, Gay Ribble and Empower Home Team, today by calling 833-301-SOLD or go to gayhasthebuyers.com. That's GAYE hasthebuyers.com. All right, let's get to Gary in the lines. Gary, you're on the Jef and Bill show.
Oh, hi, Jef and Bill.
Hey,
congratulations on a great first week. I've
been
really enjoying listening to the point counterpoint. I've been waiting for Jef to say, Bill, you terrible slut.
Well, honestly, that happens when the microphones are off. That's when we get to insult each other.
My kids,
my
kids the other day were asking me, they're like, "Should you guys get along when you're not on the road?" I was like, "Yeah, fine.
Yeah,
dude,
we're great
it's
friends.
great."
This is the fun part. Is that intellectual pugilism? This is the
Right.
fun part.
That's right.
No, you guys are doing great. Unfortunately, I agree with the last caller. I don't think Trump can win. It's unfortunate. I'd like to see a conservative for president, but he's just, for us high information voters, and I think there's more of us than you might think.
Yeah.
When we listen to his campaign speeches, and he's still saying, with me, we'll be energy independent. Guess what? We are energy independent. In fact, we've exported more oil this year than we have in 40 years. I mean, it's
great.
It's just a lie. It's just a lie, and Trump is still exaggerating that. And he just lies all the time. I thought he had something with the border crisis because of the way it's affecting sanctuary cities, but I think he's kind of blown that now by having the Senate, his gubernatorial senators reject the most recent proposal. And for me, I don't like the border crisis, but I think if we eliminate Trump and elect Biden, there might be a chance to get something done.
You really think that Biden, and if Democrats have control of the House and Senate, that they will be able to control the border?
Well, I think they'll at least move in the right direction, like the proposal they made this week that was rejected. At least it's something. It's a movement in the right direction. But the senators went, listened to almighty Trump and rejected it. And we just need to get him out of the picture. And, Frank, and also, granted, Biden's not all there. We know that. But the way I interpret that, it's not Biden making the call. It's him and his staff. He's just the front man. His staff are making the decisions, whether it's about wars or bombing or the economy. It's not him. And I don't like seeing him stagger around and not being able to talk, but I'm not too concerned about that because it's not him making the decisions. It's his staff.
Interesting.
That deeply concerns me, because then who do you hold accountable for bad decisions?
Great
right?
point,
right?
Jeff.
It was the staffer in the White House with the cocaine. It wasn't Joe Biden. He was taking a nap at that time.
I applaud you, Jeff, on that reference. Nicely done.
Well, I hold his entire administration accountable. It doesn't need to be one person. I hold him and his staff I can do that.
That's a really, really, really good point.
Gary, we really appreciate the call.
Thank you,
We're
man.
right up
Appreciate
against
that.
the end of the show here. This has been
the
a
best.
lot of fun, a lot of text messages and calls. I think the show is really coming into its own. I often kind of say it's like that Skip Bayless back and forth with Shannon Sharp. You know, we throw an issue out there and we go back and forth.
Yep.
And it seems like the listeners at 710 King US, the listeners here in Denver, Colorado, and across the country on the app, 710 King US app, are really appreciating this because you don't get it anywhere else.
No, you're not going to find this anywhere else in Denver.
You go to some of the other stations, it's just news, which is okay, but people want to talk about these stuff. You go to some other stations, it's just commentary, but it's one voice. You got it all happening here, plus Blake Olson. Man, the guys here at KNUS have put together a great show.
Yeah, and you get a chance to speak. We want to listen to you. How many other talk show hosts come out there and ask for your opinion and let it breathe?
Amen. Tomorrow, Chris Murray, Justin Folk.
Oh, boy.
We'll be talking Tucker Carlson as well. You're going to want to stick around tomorrow. You're listening to the Jef and Bill Show
on News Talk 710 KNUS.